My name is Emily, I'm 27 years old. My husband John and I met at work, and we've been married for 2 years. We've always wanted children. And guess what? I found out today that I'm pregnant. I waited for John to come home, feeling so happy. Lately, John has been busy with work, coming home late, and even working on weekends. He returned home just before the date changed today. I heard the sound of the front door opening. John probably thinks I'm already asleep. I decided to surprise him. Boo! Whoa! Welcome home. Did I scare you? Sorry, haha. Emily, you're still awake. I thought you were asleep. It seemed John was quite surprised. I have amazing news today. That's why I waited for you to come home. I felt like a child again, eager to tell someone something after so long. Wait a minute. I just got home, you know? Can't you see I'm tired? I want to take a shower first. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead and take a shower first. Lately, John gets grumpy easily, probably because of work fatigue. On his rare days off, he either sleeps all day or wakes up earlier than me to go for a drive alone, and stays out all day. We haven't really spent a proper weekend together recently. I've been feeling somewhat uneasy, but John also wanted children soon, so I was sure he would be happy to hear about my pregnancy. I spoke to John as he came out of the bathroom. I'm really sorry about earlier. I was just so excited about the good news, I got carried away. Well, it's okay now. But I want you to understand something, Emily. You're a housewife, right? I'm working. I want to relax when I'm at home. Yeah. I'm sorry. But, listen. There's something I really need to tell you today. I'm pregnant. I'm 6 weeks along. What? Pregnant? Are you serious? No way? No way? That's harsh, haha. It's true, I went to the doctor today. I've been feeling feverish lately, and my period is late. I thought maybe, so I tried a home pregnancy test and it showed I was pregnant. But I was still anxious, so I went to the hospital to confirm it. Ah, I see. So it's true. Aren't you happy, John? We've always talked about wanting kids. Suddenly I felt anxious about John's attitude. Huh? Oh, no, I'm happy. Just more shocked right now. I can't quite believe it yet. I see, that makes sense. I convinced myself that it's normal for fathers to feel the reality later than mothers. But to be honest, I wish he could have been a little happier. The following weekend, we visited John's parents' house. We went to tell my mother-in-law about the pregnancy. My mother-in-law started a business at a young age and is still very busy working. Actually, John is the next CEO. After giving birth to John, my mother-in-law divorced and started her own company. She's a woman any woman can admire, and she raised John alone while managing her business. She's straightforward but kind, and very cheerful. She treats me like her own daughter, and I really love her. Really? Emily, congratulations. I'm finally going to be a grandmother, how wonderful. If you need anything, just ask me anytime. My parents live far away, so my mother-in-law's words were very comforting. She hugged me tightly, and I felt so reassured. We decided to have lunch together and went to a restaurant, where we talked about my visit to the hospital. So, have you decided where you're going to give birth? I'm thinking of giving birth near here. My parents' house is far away, and they're both working. There are hospitals relatively close by here, so it seems like a good idea. I see. But since it's your first childbirth, I recommend a big hospital in case of emergencies. They'll be able to treat you right away if something happens. I see, that makes sense. Then, considering the proximity to our house, Line General Hospital might be the best choice. Line General Hospital? John's sudden loud voice startled both me and his mother. You've been quiet until now, what's with the surprise? Is it something to be shocked about? She said with a laugh. John seemed surprised by his own loud reaction. If it's Line General Hospital, I know some people there. It's reassuring, and they'll take care of things quickly if anything happens. How about we consider a private hospital instead? You know, they say the food is good at private maternity clinics. You seem well informed, John. Did you do some research? Oh, yeah, I did. Of course, I'm worried too. But many private hospitals nowadays don't manage childbirths to the end. Isn't it difficult to transfer to another hospital close to delivery? That's true. It might be better to stick with the same hospital from the start. Is that so? I mean, it's not like something is definitely going to happen. We're talking about being prepared in case something does happen. If they can't handle it, you'll have to transfer to a bigger hospital, right? It sounded like John's idea was naive, and his mother spoke sternly. John fell silent, unable to reply. But it's rare for you to suggest something like this, John. Is there any reason you don't want Line General Hospital? I teased a little, as it seemed more like he was avoiding Line General Hospital rather than recommending a private one. I meant it as a joke, but John was clearly flustered. No, of course not. What are you talking about? Seeing him get angry again, I responded coldly. Then we'll do as your mother said and go to a big hospital from the start. We'll settle on Line General Hospital. John said nothing in response. By his expression, it seemed he was sulking again. His mother noticed his sulking too and gave a look that said, just leave him be. When we got home, John started talking. So, my opinion is completely ignored, huh? What? Are you talking about the hospital? I'm not ignoring you. As your mother said, it's my first childbirth, and who knows what could happen, right? Why is a general hospital not okay? There are plenty of people who give birth in private hospitals. That may be true, but why do you dislike Line General Hospital so much? Is there really something wrong? I told you, there's nothing. How many times do I have to say it? I just want you to have good food. General hospitals have plain meals, right? Look, the food isn't really that important, is it? And why do you know so much about the food at private hospitals or that general hospitals have plain meals? Did you know this all along? What's this? What are you suspecting? Can't I research hospitals? I'm not saying that. I'm the father, and yet you only listen to your mother's opinion. It's my child too, you know? I didn't understand why he was being so stubborn at that time. But thinking he might sulk forever, I said, all right. I'll look for a private hospital close to home. Really? Great. That settles the first thing. Huh? First thing? What are you talking about? Nothing. Let me know when you've decided on the hospital. I wanted to retort, aren't you going to help me search? But I kept quiet. Eventually, I found a maternity clinic near our home and started going there. As morning sickness became more severe, there were days when I couldn't get up due to nausea and drowsiness. Then, John started keeping carbonated drinks and sparkling water at home for me. And that wasn't all. Since the hospital's weight management was strict, he also ordered low-calorie, easy-to-make foods in bulk. Honestly, I didn't think he could be so considerate, so I felt like I discovered a new side of John after getting pregnant. I was happy, feeling that he really cared about our unborn child. When I was 8 months pregnant and my belly had grown significantly, we decided to go shopping for baby clothes on John's day off. It was time to start preparing in earnest for the baby's arrival. "John, let's go buy baby clothes today. We need to check what's missing and be ready for the baby's arrival at any time." Right. But didn't we just do that recently? Didn't you say we got everything last time? I was puzzled. I had gone with his mother, but John had never come with us. And it wasn't recently either. That was a long time ago. We're still missing a lot. But we just went to Line Store recently, right? We bought a lot then, remember? We bought so many pink clothes because the baby's a girl, haha. I was carrying all the stuff, I can't forget that, haha. Hearing this, I was speechless. Our baby was known to be a boy. Buying a bunch of pink clothes didn't make sense. As I was speechless, John turned to me. "Girl? Pink clothes? We talked about having a boy, right? Whose child are you talking about?" Realizing his mistake after my words, John started making excuses in a panic. Wait. What did I say? You said a girl. That we bought a lot of pink clothes? I shouted, almost crying. Hey, don't get too worked up. It was just a mistake. A mistake? You said you were carrying the stuff. How could you mistake that? Who did you go with? I mean, it was just a slip of the tongue. Might as well say it now. After a moment of thought, John continued. Actually, there's a girl at work who's pregnant right now. Her due date is around the same as yours, but she's unmarried and planning to have the baby. She asked me to come shopping with her. I was unsure whether to tell you or not, thinking you'd feel upset if I said I went shopping for another child. So, I didn't tell you and just went. I got mixed up with that time. Sorry. As he spoke, John's eyes were darting around, clearly agitated. Unmarried? Why is she unmarried? Well, I don't know that much. How would I know? Where is she giving birth? Then John muttered softly. I think she said Line General Hospital. At that moment, everything I had been feeling odd about for a while seemed to connect. However, now wasn't the time to make a scene. Not until I had proof. I remained calm at that moment. If I wasn't like my usual self, John might become suspicious. I acted cheerfully as usual and focused only on our unborn child during shopping. John, thinking I had completely believed his story, shopped as if nothing had happened. Finally, it was the last month of pregnancy. The birth could happen at any time. My first priority was to safely deliver this child. John was still coming home late and was hardly at home on weekends. I had asked him to stay with me, especially now in the last month, but he would say, "It's still fine, right? Once the baby is born, I'll have even less free time. Let me have my freedom for now. Besides, I'm not just playing around, I have work too." And then he would leave. One day, I woke up feeling my belly was tighter than usual. There were still 2 weeks until the due date, but the tightness felt concerning. As I lay there, John woke up abruptly, making a lot of noise. It was much earlier than usual. "What's up?" "You're up early." "Sorry, but I have to go out now. A business trip came up." "What? A business trip?" "They don't just come up like this, do they?" "No, it did. I have to go, I'm the next CEO." Saying that, he started to get dressed in a hurry. "Can't you refuse the trip?" It's too sudden. Your mother even said there would be no business trips during my last month. Can't someone else take your place? It has to be me. I'm the only one who can do it. They're anxious, and I need to go quickly. What have you been saying? A job that absolutely needs you? I feel my belly tightening today. Maybe the baby will be born today. It's your first birth, and they often come late, right? You'll be fine today, won't you? You'll be? What do you mean by that? As if someone else's child is being born today, huh? Ha ha. Hey, what are you joking about? I didn't say that. Anyway, you'll be fine. I absolutely have to go. So, I'm leaving now. And he really left. I was filled with anxiety about John and our unborn baby. Around noon, my belly started to hurt. Unable to stand, I called the maternity clinic. They told me to come over, but I didn't have the strength to walk. My belly kept tightening, and I worried the baby might be suffering, so I decided to call an ambulance. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed, with an 4 in my arm. A nurse who came to check the 4 noticed I was awake and explained what had happened since I was brought here. This was Line General Hospital. There was a machine on my belly listening to the baby's heartbeat, and I could hear the strong heartbeat. I felt relieved that the baby was safe. They said I could contact my family, so I took out my phone and called John. I think the baby might be born today. Where are you? Can you come back? After a while, I got a reply. You know I'm on a business trip, right? I can't just come back easily. I'm in the middle of an important deal right now. I was taken by ambulance earlier. I had severe tightening in my belly and called an ambulance myself, then I must have passed out. The baby is safe. I'm glad you're safe. But sorry, I can't come back. I'm on a business trip. I sighed as I read John's message. Then, I heard breathing sounds from the room next to me, along with a husband's voice encouraging, "Hang in there, just a little longer." It was clear she was having contractions. At the same time, I felt envious that her husband was there, supporting her. Just a bit more, let's do this. Our baby is going to be so cute. I soon realized that the familiar voice I heard was none other than John's. I was still messaging John. Please, I'm so anxious. It would be such a relief if you were here with me. The response I heard next was shocking. Huh? Emily is still going on about that. Can't she just give up? I'm busy attending a birth here. She keeps nagging even though I said I'm on a business trip. I impulsively opened the door of the next room. The room I got in was just the same labor room as mine. I had to check, hearing a voice like John's and even my name being mentioned. And there was John, my husband. Emily? John. What are you doing? I glanced next to John and saw a surprised woman lying there. Her face was familiar. It felt wrong, like seeing something I shouldn't have, and I quickly closed the door. My heart was pounding after closing it. Soon after, a nurse came, and I was moved to my delivery room. I couldn't stop crying. I had a suspicion of infidelity, but never imagined it was actually happening. And that woman was giving birth now? My mind was in a state of panic. Realizing I couldn't stay like this, I called my mother-in-law. She cried with me and said sorry on John's behalf. She then told me something. Eventually, I was moved back to my original maternity clinic. Though I didn't go into labor that day and was supposed to go home, the doctor, worried about my crying, arranged for me to stay at the clinic. Alone in the hospital room, I cried silently. Then I received a message from John. I didn't want to see his face, hear his voice, or have anything to do with him, but for our child's sake, I opened the email. Emily, were you at the general hospital? I thought, really, starting from there? Yes, I was there, was all I replied. Ah, I thought so. That was you. Is something wrong? Did you go into labor? When I passed by the room again, you weren't there. I told you I was taken by ambulance, remember? Oh right, you were busy with the birth. Look, Emily, you're misunderstanding something. Misunderstanding? What do you mean? Yes, I was at that place. But I'm not the father, okay? What? What kind of nonsensical excuse is that? John didn't even ask where I was now. I was beyond angry, just feeling disgusted. No, remember I told you? There's a pregnant girl at work. She was the one giving birth today. Then why did you lie about going on a business trip? No, I did go, really. But on the way, she called me, saying she really needed me there, so I went to the hospital. John's attempt to lighten the mood with laughter felt disgusting. Is this something to laugh about? When I said I wasn't feeling well and asked you not to go, all you said was, "You'll be fine. Calm down." Are you at the hospital now? I'll come over. You finally asked where I am. Don't bother coming. I'll have this child on my own. Just stay home. It's not something to get so angry about. If you're that mad, I might just divorce you, you know? I felt as if my patience had audibly snapped. Enough. What do you mean, might divorce? Fine, let's do it. I'll make you pay child support for sure. How long does this man plan to keep deceiving me? You're cheating, aren't you? How long do you plan to keep this up? Let's divorce. Hey, are you serious? How will you live if you divorce me, huh? Besides, where's your proof that I cheated? Everything you saw or heard today was just a misunderstanding. Do you have photos or recordings? John said this with a triumphant tone. However, he seemed to have forgotten that I have an important ally. I have plenty of photos. Your mistress is Julia from the reception at your company. I recognized her from when I used to work there. Let's see, photos of you entering and leaving her apartment, shopping together, and the two of you happily going to the maternity clinic. And the best part? In the birth certificate section for the baby's parents, it lists Julia and John. That's more than enough evidence, isn't it? What? Why are you investigating all this? I've been suspicious since I told you about my pregnancy, but your mother noticed it before me and started acting. She was the one who moved. Huh? Why would my mother? Remember what your mother said? She has acquaintances at Lyon General Hospital. I think she mentioned something like that. Turns out, it's a nurse at the maternity ward. She recognized you and informed your mother when she saw you and Julia at the hospital. But I chose a private clinic, didn't I? So, your mother wondered who the woman you were going to the hospital with was. And then, she had you investigated. Investigated? My mother-in-law had suspicions about John and had him investigated by a detective agency without telling me. The results were damning. Faking business trips, using company expenses for trips with his girlfriend, and abusing his position as the CEO's son. That's why there was so much evidence. You didn't want Lyon General Hospital because you were going there with her, right? It would be a mess if we met there. Knowing so much about hospital meals and what's good for morning sickness was because you were watching her. When we went to buy baby clothes, you thought you had fooled me, but I've always found it strange. Mistaking your mistress's baby for ours is just the lowest. I never imagined you could be such a despicable man. I'm appalled. Fine, I get it. Let's divorce. I don't care, I'll just remarry her and eventually become the CEO. You're the one who will struggle. I couldn't believe he had the nerve to say such things so loudly, knowing he was at fault. Your mother said she's going to fire you and Julia, you know? What? Your mother has always been merit-based, right? You might have thought you'd inherit the company without effort, but she doesn't seem to think so. She said she'll leave the company to the most trustworthy person when the time comes. I didn't hear anything like that. Your mother might be coming to your house soon. She said she'd get the divorce papers in my stead. And expect a stern scolding. Listen to her well. My mother, go get divorce papers? Wait a minute. Waiting won't change anything. It's fine. Marry Julia and take responsibility, she has your child. And I'll make sure to get my due from you. Wait. If I can't become CEO, what am I supposed to do? I truly love you, Emily. Let's not divorce. I laughed at such absurdity and immediately blocked John. Even if he couldn't contact me, my mother-in-law would handle it. I trusted her that much. John was made to kneel and scolded by his mother when she arrived. It turned out the reason for my mother-in-law's divorce was infidelity during her pregnancy. She had told me this when I called her crying. She never imagined her son would make the same mistake, and she cried. John was fired immediately for using company funds personally. Julia was also fired and never returned. Now, John juggles morning and evening jobs, paying me child support while exhausted. Julia started working too, but seemed constantly stressed with childcare and financial worries. The child is not at fault, so I want the child to be happy. As for me, I eventually gave birth to a healthy boy. My mother-in-law accompanied me. Now, I live with her. I wonder if it's okay to be this dependent on her, as she takes such good care of me. I've also decided to return to work at her place of employment. She jokes, or maybe she's serious, about taking over her company to me when she retires. I'm determined to keep striving, for my child and for the important people who support me.
Tom hastily put away his phone into his pocket. Suddenly, Catherine said to Tom with a serious look, "Tom, why did you bury baby at the mountain?" Hearing that, both Emily and Karen stopped their conversation and stared at Catherine in surprise. "Huh?" Tom's face turned pale. "What are you talking about?" Tom replied in confusion. "The baby I just saw on your phone." "Tom, show me the photos on your phone again." When Catherine said this, Tom opened his photo folder and showed the camping photos. "Not this photo." Catherine quickly took Tom's phone from his hand and swiped the screen. In an instant, Tom exclaimed, "Ah," and tried to grab his phone back. Dodging Tom's hand, Catherine showed the phone screen to Emily and Karen. On it was a picture of an unfamiliar young woman. "She's the one who asked me out first. She said she was struggling with her job and wanted to talk about it." Tom insisted that he only kept seeing her because she asked him to. Thanks to Catherine's mysterious power, Emily came to know the other side of Tom. Tom had been coming home late and had been staring at his phone late into the night. Was that the reason? Emily made Tom guide her to the mountain where he had buried the baby. Holding the unearthed baby, Emily would head to Tom's workplace the next day. "My name is Emily Johnson, and I'm 29 years old. I married Tom a year ago. Tom, who is the same age as me, is an office worker. I also work for a company and live a busy life. We don't have children yet. I met Tom through a friend's introduction. After dating for a few years, we got married last year. Our wedding was very moving. Tom helps with household chores, and sometimes he even cooks dinner. He's the perfect husband for me. I felt truly happy to have married him. My older sister Karen lives about 20 minutes by car from the apartment where we live. Karen, 3 years my senior, is married and has a daughter named Catherine, who is 5 years old. Karen's family of 3 lives in a single family house they purchased. I adore my niece, Catherine. Catherine affectionately calls me Millie. Once when I visited my sister's house, Catherine suddenly said this to me. You know, when I was in Mommy's belly, I heard Millie's voice. What? I was very surprised. Do you remember being in Mommy's belly, Catherine? Yes, I heard Mommy's and Daddy's voices too. Catherine answered with a serious look. I had heard stories of children having pre-birth memories before, but this was the first time someone had actually told me. When I told this to Karen, she said, yes, sometimes Catherine mentions things she remembers from when she was in my belly. I was impressed. Karen shared another story with me. And it's not just that. Sometimes when I lose something and am looking for it, Catherine tells me where it is even if she didn't see where I put it. And when I check the place she pointed out, I find it there. That's amazing. And I don't really understand it, but it seems like Catherine has some mysterious power. Karen said this to me with a serious expression. A little distance away from them, Catherine was innocently playing with her stuffed toy. Watching her, I wondered if young children might actually possess some unique powers. Some time passed since then. Tom's returns home started to get later day by day. At first, I thought he must be busy with work, but recently, he was coming back home after midnight quite often. I began to feel a bit anxious. Late at night, when Tom would come home and head straight for the shower, I would try to talk to him. Tom, you've had a lot of overtime lately, haven't you? Yeah, my boss just won't let me leave. Saying this, Tom shut the door with a bang and went into the bathroom. About 5 minutes later, Tom emerged. Emily tried to offer him the dinner she had prepared, but Tom responded, sorry, I'm too tired to eat. Well, I'm going to bed then. All right, good night. Since it was quite late, Emily headed to the bedroom. She thought Tom, being so exhausted that he couldn't even eat, would soon join her in the bedroom. But even after an hour, then 2 hours, Tom didn't come to the bedroom. Unable to sleep due to her anxiety, Emily left the bedroom to sneak a peek into the living room. And then, in the dimly lit living room, Tom sat on the sofa engrossed in his smartphone. Judging by his hand movements, Tom seems to be texting on his smartphone. His face looked very happy, grinning from ear to ear. Despite supposedly being exhausted from overtime, what on earth is he doing? Could he possibly be exchanging messages with someone? If so, who? My heart was filled with unease. Lacking the courage to speak to Tom, who was happily engrossed in his smartphone, I quietly returned to the bedroom. Hey Tom, do you want to go camping on the next long weekend? One day, I approached Tom with this proposal. Camping? Even though we were still newlyweds, we hadn't been out anywhere lately. Not long ago, we used to go out for movie dates or to amusement parks on weekends. I wanted to spend some quality time with Tom in the mountains. We could pitch a tent at a mountain campsite and have a barbecue. Just the two of us. And at night, we can stargaze. Doesn't that sound fun? Well, maybe. Tom didn't seem very enthusiastic, but I really wanted to go. I was sure that once we got there, Tom would enjoy himself. Okay, fine, but what about the car? Our car is small and won't hold much. Being reminded of this by Tom, I decided to ask Karen for advice. One day, I visited Karen's house alone, and I asked her if we could borrow her car. You can borrow our car. If you want, you can use our 10 as well. Karen generously offered me help. Karen's car was a large van, perfect for carrying baggage, and it's suited for mountain roads. Thank you so much, Karen. It was a great help. Take this time to relax and enjoy, just the two of you. As Karen and I were chatting, Catherine overheard us and said, "Are you guys going camping? I want to go too. That would be nice. Maybe next time we can go together." Eventually, the day before the camping trip arrived, I borrowed Karen's car and drove home. The next day, Tom and I set out on a 3-day, 2-night camping trip. Breathing in the fresh mountain air, I felt both physically and mentally refreshed. Tom seemed to smile more than usual, and he appeared to enjoy himself. I was glad we came to the mountains, even if it meant dragging him out. While chatting with Tom, I felt deeply content. However, in the middle of the night, Tom, who was sleeping beside me, gently got up and started using his smartphone again. I pretended to be asleep. For about 2 hours, Tom was engrossed in his smartphone. He seemed to be messaging someone. The same thing happened the second night. On the third day, we returned home from the campsite. It was around 4 p.m. "When did you say we needed to return this car?" Karen said it'd be fine if we returned it tomorrow. As I responded, Tom's spirits suddenly lifted. "In that case, can I use the car to go out for a bit now? Now, we've just come back from camping." I was surprised. Why would he want to go out again just after returning from a trip? I wanted to invite some local male friends and try going out in such a large car. "You're not planning to drink, right?" "I promise I won't." "What time will you be back?" "I'll try to be back before midnight. It's a day off. It should be okay once in a while, right?" Tom persuaded me, and I reluctantly agreed. Tom got into the car humming happily and quickly took off. I wonder if all our local friends can make it even though it's a holiday, and he contacted them so suddenly. With such thoughts, I spent my time alone at home. Then, just a few minutes before midnight, Tom returned home. I came back before the date changed, right? Plus, I didn't drink. Tom immediately said this to me upon his return. Then, he quickly took out his smartphone and started looking at it. "Tom, you've been looking at your phone a lot lately, haven't you?" I said, showing my dissatisfaction. "I'm texting a friend I was just with." Saying this, Tom took his phone and went to the restroom. The next day, Tom and I went to Karen's house to return the car and tent. Catherine was also delighted when we gave her some snacks we bought near the campsite. Karen invited Tom and me inside and served us coffee. Catherine has met Tom many times, so she's quite fond of him. Since Karen refers to her husband as Tommy, Catherine started calling him the same way over time. Catherine was playing while sitting on the sofa with Tom. Tom responded to Catherine with a smile. Eventually, at Catherine's request, Tom began showing her the photos from the campsite on his smartphone. Karen and I were having a chat. "And how was the camping? Did you have fun?" "Yes, very much. Thanks for the car and tent. They were a big help." Suddenly, Tom said to Catherine in a loud voice, "Don't touch without asking. That's enough." It seems Catherine, who is familiar with smartphones, played with Tom's phone without his permission. "Catherine, don't touch things without asking." Karen gently warned Catherine, "And I want to see more photos on Tommy's phone." Catherine looked dissatisfied. Tom hastily put his smartphone into his pocket. Suddenly, Catherine seriously asked Tom, "Why did you bury the baby in the mountain, Tommy? Hearing this, both Karen and I stopped talking and stared at Catherine in shock. Huh? Tom looked pale. What are you talking about? Tom replied, flustered. The baby I just saw on Tommy's phone, Catherine said with a serious look. Tommy, show me the photos on your phone again. Catherine asked this, and Tom opened his photo gallery to show her the camping photos. Not these photos. Saying this, Catherine swiftly took the smartphone from Tom's hand and started sliding the screen. Tom tried to grab it back in panic, but Catherine was too quick for him. She then showed Karen and me a photo on the phone screen. The photo showed an unfamiliar young woman. The woman was holding a large stuffed toy resembling a baby and smiling brightly. The background revealed it was a UFO catcher game. It seems the photo was taken at a game center, and the stuffed toy was likely a prize from the game. Who is this? I asked in a low voice. Tom, looking panicked, tried to take the smartphone back from Catherine. Just then, Catherine handed the phone to me, and I continued to slide through the images. The next photo showed Tom and the young woman taking a selfie together, looking very close. Sliding once more revealed another selfie of Tom and the woman lying side by side. On closer inspection, they were inside a car. Based on the seat color and the interior, it was the car borrowed from Karen. It seems like they laid flat on the reclined seats and took photos together. Tom's eyes were moving from right to left. Sweat was breaking out on his forehead. Karen looked at me with concern. Then, my brother-in-law came home after finishing work. I wanted to immediately question Tom about the woman in the photo. But understandably, I couldn't interrogate him in front of Catherine and my brother-in-law. Karen, sensing the tension, proposed to my brother-in-law to take care of Catherine and suggested moving to another room. Tom, Karen, and I went to a room on the second floor, closed the door, and continued our conversation there. Who's the woman in the smartphone? Tom didn't open up easily. However, due to relentless probing from Karen and me, he finally confessed. The woman in the photo was his junior colleague, Mina. She is apparently 23 years old. She joined the company as a new employee this spring. Tom was having an affair with this woman named Mina. I was so shocked that I felt like collapsing. She approached me first. She was troubled over her work and wanted someone to consult with. Tom, can you show us the exchanges you had with this Mina? Caught off guard by Karen's sudden request, Tom was flustered. What? No, that's impossible. Since there has been misconduct, as your sister-in-law, I would like to see the proof. Emily also has the right to know. Tom absolutely refused to show his smartphone, but under Karen's strong persuasion, he reluctantly handed it over to her. Viewing Tom's phone revealed numerous exchanges with Mina. They whispered sweet words to each other several times a day. I was stunned to see their exchange from the late night of the day Tom went out with the car borrowed from Karen. I enjoyed today. It was only for a short time, but I'm glad I got to meet Mina. I was so happy to get cozy with you in such a big car. Me too. I lied just to sneak out of the house today. Speaking of which, was it sad to bury the baby's stuffed toy in the mountain? It's a wait till the day we can get married, right? Let's dig it out together then. It's like a time capsule. Tom, when can you divorce your wife? I'll try to make it happen soon. If we get married, you will bear my child, won't you, Mina? Yes, I believe in you and will wait. I was frozen in shock after reading this exchange. What is this? Tom was sweating profusely and looking uncomfortable. Tom, tell us the details. Tom, feeling cornered, began to confess in detail. He started going out for meals with Mina when she said she had some concerns. Claiming it was late, Tom drove her home. Since Mina lived with her parents, she couldn't invite him in. So they parked near a park and talked into the night. Eventually, they became romantically involved. The times Tom claimed to be working late were actually spent dating Mina. On the day they returned from the camping trip, Tom, wanting to go on a drive with Mina, lied to me and met her. They enjoyed the drive and stopped at an amusement arcade at some point. Mina pestered, and Tom got a large baby plushie from a claw machine. We are like a married couple with a baby. While holding the stuffed animal, Mina rejoiced. It seems they made a promise together saying, "Let's bury this stuffed animal in the mountain like a time capsule until the day we can become a real married couple. If we can marry, let's come back here to remember today and dig it out." They put the stuffed animal in a big plastic bag and buried it together on a small hill located deep in the park, where they always parked their car and got intimate. Fortunately, there were shovels in the car as they had just returned from a camping trip. What's that all about? I was taken aback when I heard the story. Karen, who was next to me, seemed lost for words, her brow furrowed. Burying a baby's stuffed animal in the mountain is creepy in itself. What's even sadder is that the two have already sworn to marry each other. Tom had even told Mina, "When we can marry someday, you'll have my baby, right?" Tom repeatedly emphasized that she asked me out first, but Tom himself was making remarks to get her in the mood. This hurt me even more. Tom and I have only been married for a year and we don't have children yet. On the other hand, Tom is vowing to marry a young new employee and even imagining a baby. I burst into tears in front of Tom and Karen. Karen hugged my shoulders and comforted me. Tom just looked awkward and flustered. But it's strange. How did Catherine know just by looking at a photo that Tom buried a baby's stuffed animal in the mountain? After crying a lot, I murmured this. Right? That girl really has some mysterious power. Tom was stunned. However, he didn't seem to have the courage to ask Karen or me for details, and once again hung his head in dismay. Since it was getting late, Tom and I returned to our apartment. Back home, I sat face to face with Tom and continued the conversation. Even though we've only been married for a year, how could you betray me so calmly? I stared at Tom and said this. I'm sorry, but honestly, if she hadn't invited me, I never would have thought of doing such a thing. How dare you say that? You got excited by a young woman inviting you, didn't you? I lashed out at Tom, who was making excuses even now. Tom, you're terrible, but that woman Mina is also out of her mind. She knows you're married. Well, she's been having a tough time at work and was struggling. I was exasperated by Tom's comment, which seemed to defend Mina. So because she looked troubled, as her senior, you decided to console her in the car and get intimate? I've been worried too. Lately, you come home late, and you're always on your phone until the wee hours. I pretended to be asleep, but I knew you were constantly texting someone on your phone. I raised my voice and said this to Tom. Tom looked down and fell silent once again. First of all, I will inform my parents as well as Tom's parents about this. Upon saying this, Tom began to panic. You're going to tell our parents? Of course. At the very least, my sister already knows. How can we keep something like this a secret? I exposed Tom's affair to both our parents. As a result, parents from both sides stormed into our home and scolded Tom. How could you cheat after just a year of marriage? Emily must feel so hurt. What about the vows you took at our wedding? You promised tearfully that you would make my daughter happy, but you betrayed her so easily. My parents berated Tom with great vigor. And more than that, Tom's parents were furious too. Tom, I never thought you could be such a foolish son. You are a disgrace to the Johnson family, that's right. We will never let you come back to our house. More than that, I feel so sorry for Emily, your newlyweds. I'm truly sorry, Emily. As parents, we are deeply ashamed. We have a complete failure of a son. Tom's parents looked deeply regrettable. Hey, what are you spacing out for? Tom, you must ask for forgiveness. Tom was forcefully made to kneel down in front of me by his father. I'm truly sorry. Enraged his parents, Tom said this to me with tears streaming down his face. Despite having a wonderful wife like Emily, you're so pathetic. Tom, we are cutting ties with you. Understood? After being scolded heavily by both parents, Tom was exhausted and just sat down. Tom, let's get a divorce. I said it decisively. Meh, it's only right. You want to marry Mina and have a baby, right? I'll gladly divorce someone like you, I yelled at Tom. Wait, Emily. Yes, I texted Mina about marrying her and having kids. But that wasn't my true feeling. I just said what I thought would please her in the heat of that moment. The one I truly love is you, Emily. Tom said this as if pleading with me. Hearing what you just said, I hate you even more now. Meh. When I said this coldly, Tom looked bewildered. He should have known that such words wouldn't convince me. I can't trust you anymore. Let's divorce. I told Tom. Please reconsider. I really didn't intend to marry Mina. She was just a fling. Tom betrayed me and now he's here, putting on a futile show. I then said to Tom, Tom, could you show me where you buried the stuffed animal? Huh? The long weekend ended and it was Tom's day to go to work. Although I was also supposed to work, I took a day off after informing the company. Excuse me. Thank you for always working hard with my husband. I smiled cheerfully and loudly greeted as I entered the office building. It was Tom's workplace. Everyone present turned their attention to me, completely shocked. No wonder. In my arm, I was holding a baby stuffed animal covered in dirt. The sight was so unusual that the employees were staring in disbelief. With each step, the dirt from the stuffed animal was falling onto the office floor. Emily, Tom, pale as a ghost, rushed over to me. The previous day, I had Tom take me to the mountain where he had buried the stuffed animal. I made him dig it up right in front of me. The stuffed animal was in a big bag, but due to the digging, the bag tore, making it filthy with dirt. That night, I was pondering how to exact revenge using this stuffed animal. The plan I came up with was to bring this dirty stuffed animal to the company. Tom, who never expected me to show up at his workplace with the stuffed animal, seemed completely taken aback. My husband had an affair with a junior named Mina. As I said this, all the employees focused on one woman. It was Mina, Tom's mistress. Like Tom, Mina was as pale as a ghost, and out of sheer embarrassment, she looked down. They had a plan to bury this stuffed animal until they got married. And once their dream came true, they would dig it up together. Hearing this, murmurs of disbelief echoed throughout the office. But I don't understand. Even though he was cheating with Mina, why did he make such a promise to me? I said this as I played a video on my smartphone. Tom's voice echoed loudly from the phone. Please reconsider. I never had any intention of marrying Mina. She was just a fling. The video ended and Mina, who had been looking down, lifted her face. Her expression changed drastically. Just a fling, Tom? What do you mean by that? No, it's not like that. I mean, Tom was flustered, unable to find the right words between Mina and me. You said you wanted to divorce your wife and marry me, right? You asked me to have your baby, didn't you? Mina shouted at Tom in fury. The employees were once again taken by surprise, and they all started buzzing. Here you go. I handed the dirty stuffed animal to Mina. I then presented Tom with divorce papers. We're getting a divorce? Do the procedure right now, you awful man. Intimidated by my determination, Tom silently received the divorce application forms. Everyone, sorry for the disturbance. I have finished my business here, so I'll be leaving now. I gave them a wink and then said to both Tom and Mina, I wish you both all the best. And so I left Tom's office, brushing the dirt off my clothes as I walked away. Tom and Mina both confessed to their bosses about their affair after being questioned in detail at their respective sections. It seems that they were both fired immediately as their superiors were concerned about tarnishing the company's image. Mina was very angry when he referred to her relationship as just a fling. Consumed by her anger, she transformed from a timid new employee into a woman driven by madness. After I divorced and moved out, Mina forcefully moved into the apartment, and the two of them started living together. Tom was threatened by Mina, who told him, You never know what I might do. He had no choice but to do as she said. After being fired, Tom tried to find another job, but Mina forbade him from talking to other women. Tom was growing tired of Mina, but due to her unpredictable behavior, he reluctantly obeyed her. Tom ended up working at a construction site where only men worked, exhausting himself daily with unfamiliar physical labor. Mina took away Tom's freedom, and it seems she constantly checks his smartphone, keeping a close watch on him. She probably feared that another woman would take Tom away from her, just as she had done. Tom struggled financially, burdened not only by the apartment rent and living expenses, but also by the spousal support I demanded from him. Mina, who didn't seem to have any savings because she was a new employee, juggled various part-time jobs, but she kept getting fired and hopped from one job to another. The lawyer who helped me with the divorce met Tom. He learned about Tom and Mina's miserable life and reported it to me. After the divorce, I returned to live at my parents' house. It was within commuting distance from my job, so I continued working as usual. Living at my parents' house provided me with more opportunities to meet not only my parents but also Karen and Catherine. Emily, you've been through a lot. You're still young. I'm sure you'll find someone better. I hope so. But thanks to Catherine's mysterious powers, I was able to break up with that terrible man early. I truly feel that way. Breaking up with such a man was a silver lining amidst all the misfortune. I felt grateful to Catherine, who seemed to have some mystical power as if she were my benefactor. I hope that someday I can meet a sincere man, get married, and raise children. For that future, I am working hard now to save money. With these thoughts, I live each day with a positive outlook.
You're not even a woman if you're infertile. What? That's right. An infertile wife like you is just useless. You have no value at all, haha. Let's get divorced. And you owe me $20,000 in damages. Make sure you pay it, okay? Haha. As we approach divorce, my husband completely looks down on me. He seems unaware of a certain secret of mine, and his attitude is quite arrogant. Fine, let's get divorced, I say spiritedly, handing over the divorce papers I had prepared. Oh, perfect timing. This is the first time I've felt in sync with you since we got married. Haha. Yes, I'm also surprised how well we're syncing up for the first time, I reply calmly. My husband seems unfazed by my demeanor, humming happily, probably planning to be with his mistress. However, I'm overjoyed to finally be divorcing this abusive man. My husband, who works part-time, thinks I can't do anything without his earnings. But he panics and calls me repeatedly for help as soon as he discovers my secret. My name is Emily, 35 years old. I work part-time at a financial company while living with my husband, John. I met John through an acquaintance. When we first met, he was quite nervous and said, "Nice to meet you. I'm John. You're as beautiful as the rumors say." I hastily denied it, saying, "Not at all, haha." Our conversation was just cliches like, "What are your hobbies?" "Reading." "Ah, reading, that's nice. But it's nice weather, isn't it?" "Yes, very nice weather. What do you do for work?" "I work at the city office. Just regular office work." "Oh, really?" And then we didn't talk much after that, ending the day without much excitement. I wasn't excited at all. I thought I wouldn't meet him again. However, a few months later, I ran into John by chance at the convenience store closest to my house while buying dessert. We met again after a long time. "Oh, it's you from that time. John, right? It's been a while." John, looking embarrassed, said, "Back then, I was really nervous and couldn't keep the conversation going. I regretted it a lot. I'm so happy to see you again." Despite his manly appearance, John was shy and reserved, which somehow made him look cute. I couldn't help but laugh and say, "Haha, you're cute. Cute?" he exclaimed, surprised to be called cute by a woman. "I thought you were scary, but you're actually quite cute. Haha. Is that a compliment?" John asked. Despite our awkward first meeting, we had a great time talking and became very close. This day marked the beginning of many dates together. Contrary to my first impression, being with him was fun, and we were increasingly drawn to each other, eventually starting a relationship. During our relationship, John was very shy and reserved, but he always made sure to reserve my favorite restaurant for our dates, research places for us to visit, keep me laughing all day, and even decorated the room and baked a cake for our anniversary, despite not being good at cooking. He was very earnest and kind. "I'm really glad I met you, Emily. Your smile is the cutest, and it makes me happy every day. Thank you for everything," John would say, showering me with sweet words, completely smitten with me. I was also head over heels for John, who treated me so well and was incredibly kind. Every word he said made me very happy. After 2 years of dating, John proposed, and we happily got married, celebrated by everyone. After getting married, John once said, "I prefer my wife not to work too hard and stay at home." I was a bit troubled as my job was really busy and I couldn't spend much time with him. So I asked, can I at least work part-time? He agreed, and I switched from full-time to part-time at the same company. When we started having more leisure time at home, John asked, "I love kids and want to have them. Do you want kids, Emily?" "I love kids too. Let's see, I think I want about 3 kids. 3 siblings sound great. If we have a boy, I want to play catch with him. If it's a girl, I want to go out wearing matching clothes." We talked like this, looking forward to the days that would come. However, 2 years into trying to conceive, I was still not pregnant. After discussing it with my husband, we decided to get checked at a gynecology clinic. The test results revealed that I had fallopian tube blockage. My fallopian tubes were blocked, preventing fertilization. It was one of the causes of infertility. "John, I'm sorry. It seems I have difficulty getting pregnant." With tears in my eyes, I told John, who then comforted me, "Don't worry about it. Sure, I wanted kids, but what I love is Emily. Not being able to have kids doesn't mean I'll stop loving you. Really, you won't hate me." "What are you talking about? I could never hate you. All I need is for Emily to be smiling by my side," he said gently, stroking my head. His words made me so happy that I cried even more. After researching, we found out that it wasn't impossible to get pregnant. With treatment, there might be a chance, so we decided to work on it together. But a few days after receiving the test results, John's attitude towards me started to become harsher. "Emily, why haven't you done the dishes? Can't you at least do that?" "The dishes? I did them. There's just the cup you used a while ago left." The next day, he got even more aggressive. "Hey, there's dust on the floor. You're just working part-time, right? Shouldn't you at least take care of the house?" Initially, I thought he was just irritable from work and tried not to mind it too much. However, his next words revealed the real reason for his irritability. "Hey, why is the laundry piling up again? What's this? Can't you even manage the household chores perfectly? Infertile and useless." "What? What did you just say? You can't do household chores. You can't have kids. You're useless," John yelled. "That's awful. How can you say something like that? The doctor said that with treatment, I could get pregnant." I tried to hold back my tears and argued, but he replied, "It's pointless. Treatment will be a waste. Besides, how are you going to pay for the treatment with your part-time job earnings? Huh? Ha ha." Even though there was a possibility with treatment, I couldn't say anything back. He's the one who told me to work. He said it was enough for him if I was just smiling. I felt so frustrated and tears started flowing. His verbal abuse only escalated from there. One day, he threw my food in front of me, yelling, "Hey, infertile woman, this food is bland." When I retorted, "I haven't changed the seasoning," he shouted back, "Shut up. Don't talk back to me." Another day, he laughed at me, saying, "This shirt is still wrinkled. Can't you see? I guess an infertile part-timer like you wouldn't understand, haha. And from today, you'll sleep in a different room. There's no point sleeping with an infertile woman like you." His words and actions became unbearable. However, I couldn't forget the kind John and endured the pain and sadness. As I was enduring these tough days, before I knew it, I had turned 35. After turning 35, the chances of getting pregnant apparently dropped significantly. I was waiting for John to come home to ask him again about trying infertility treatment, but he didn't return even after his usual time. Around midnight, when John finally returned, I said, "You're late. I wanted to talk to you." To which he replied, "Now, I'm so tired and busy, and you can even consider that." My courage was crushed, and I just said, "Sorry, maybe some other time." And so I never got to have that conversation. I kept waiting for a day when John would come home early to talk to him, but his returns became later and later every day. "You've been coming home late recently. Is something wrong? Stop interfering, you infertile woman." He spat those words and refused to listen to me. On a day filled with such unresolved thoughts, I couldn't sleep, so I decided to watch a movie in the living room until I felt sleepy. Suddenly, I heard the front door open. John had returned. It was 1 o'clock, and the date had already changed. When John entered the living room and saw me, he frowned and said, "Ugh, why are you still awake? Go to sleep already. You're annoying." As if I was a nuisance. What? I couldn't sleep, so I just came to the living room. Ignoring my words, John left the living room with a huff, making a lot of noise as he went back to his room. Although I was fed up with his attitude, I stayed alone for a while and eventually felt sleepy. Just as I was about to return to my room, I heard voices coming from John's room. "Thanks for today. It was really fun." "Emily," I thought, who is he talking to on the phone? And it wasn't overtime after all. Today's Catherine was so cute, I couldn't help it. "I'll definitely get a divorce. Just wait for me. I love you." Catherine, love, divorce. John was having an affair. The thought that John, a clerk at the city office, was working overtime every day until the date changed was suspicious. I had a feeling it was a lie. However, I never expected him to be having an affair. Since I told him about my infertility, John stopped saying sweet things like "I love you" or "You're cute to me," yet he boldly whispers love to his mistress over the phone. He could have at least hidden his affair better. Realizing how blatantly he's disrespecting me, I understood that he's taking me for granted. He told his lover, "I'll definitely get a divorce." It seems he plans to leave me, the infertile one. Until now, I still had some love for John and couldn't leave him due to our long relationship. But now I want to be the one to divorce this abusive man. To divorce him advantageously, I needed evidence of his affair and his verbal abuse. So, I decided to talk to my father about it. "Dad, it's been a while. Have you been well?" I'm fine. It's rare for you to call me, Emily. What's going on?" "It seems that John is having an affair. He's planning to divorce me to be with his mistress." "What? That's terrible. I was so happy when you two got married," he said, his tone revealing his sadness. "So, I want to gather evidence of the affair. Do you know any good lawyers? Leave it to me. I'll do anything for you, Emily." Thank you. After ending the call, I waited for a few days for my father's response. During this time, John kept insulting me, calling me useless, worthless woman, infertile, good for nothing. But I didn't care. In fact, I wanted him to keep insulting me, because I was recording all his verbal abuse to use as evidence for my divorce. The more he insulted me, the more evidence I gathered. He was unaware that his foolish behavior was just adding to the proof against him. Finally, my father contacted me. I've got solid evidence of John's affair. My acquaintance took care of it. He betrayed my precious daughter. He won't get away with this, said my father, even angrier than me. He was truly reliable. My father is the president of the company where I work part-time. My father founded a financial company, which will celebrate its 50th anniversary next year. Actually, to speak for myself, I come from a wealthy family and I'm the daughter of the company's president. My father, being in the financial industry, has many connections, including lawyers. That's why I consulted him and sought his help. One day, when all the evidence was ready, I waited for John to come home to discuss divorce. He entered the living room humming a tune, looking exceptionally cheerful. "Oh, you're here," my husband said, unusually smiling at me. While I found his behavior creepy, I replied, "Of course, I'm here. This is my house too. What's up? You seem in a good mood." "What? You're talking back now? Well, good. Let's get divorced. Right now. What's the rush all of a sudden? You're not a woman if you're infertile. There's no reason to continue our marriage with a woman who's not a woman." "What? That's right. An infertile wife like you is just useless. You have no value at all, haha. Let's get divorced." While I was exasperated, I replied, "Fine. Let's get divorced. I was going to suggest it today too." "Oh, perfect timing. This is the first time I've felt in sync with you since we got married, haha. Yes, I'm also surprised how well we're syncing up for the first time." He seemed very pleased, probably planning to be with his mistress, Catherine. "And you owe me $20,000 in damages. Make sure you pay it, okay? Haha. What damages? It's your punishment for marrying me despite being infertile. You wasted many years of my life. Of course, you should pay the property division, haha. Though I doubt you can afford it with your part-time job, haha." As we approached divorce, my husband completely looked down on me. I handed over the divorce papers I had prepared, feeling spirited. "Preparation is good, isn't it? Here, I've signed it. Now I'm free," he exclaimed, raising his arms in joy. "Oh, by the way, you're the one who's going to pay the damages." "What did I do?" "You're the bad one, aren't you? Did you think I didn't know about your affair? With Catherine, was it? Make sure to tell that naive girl she'll be receiving a demand for the property division too." John's eyes widened in shock. "How did you? Also, I'm going to sue you for your verbal abuse, not just for the affair." "Verbal abuse? You have no proof." John, still not grasping the situation, started to become arrogant. "Look at this, haha." Showing him the accumulated audio recordings and the evidence of the affair gathered by my father, including photos and videos. John was shocked and began to get angry. "You trapped me? When did you collect all this? You're a devious woman. Trapped? You're the one who had an affair and spewed insults every day without any provocation, right? Haha. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to have a family with Catherine and be happy. You're just a part-timer. You can't live without me, haha. That's why you're desperately trying to extort alimony from us." So, I decided to enlighten my husband. "You thought I had no money because I work part-time? You're really stupid. I'm a president's daughter, you know? I probably have more money than you." "What? What are you talking about? Claiming to be a president's daughter now? That's just pathetic bragging." "Fine, if you don't believe it, that's okay. Anyway, I don't want to see your face anymore, so goodbye." Saying this, I left the house. I immediately submitted the divorce papers to the city office. The divorce was successfully finalized. I called my father first. "Dad, thanks to you, I got divorced today. I feel a bit anxious, but mostly I feel refreshed." "Good, you did well. Also, I've been thinking about something for a while." "What is it?" "I'm getting old. I've been thinking of stepping down as president soon. But before that, I want to give you my assets through a living inheritance. I've been talking to a judicial scrivener about it. It's better for you to inherit the money now, when you need it, rather than after I die." I was surprised by the sudden announcement, but I had always been told that I would inherit all the wealth, so I guess the time had finally come. "You've always said that, but are you sure it's okay?" "Of course, you're my precious only daughter. A parent wants to do everything for their child's happiness." "Thank you." "Also, the assets amount to $15 million, my father said nonchalantly. I was so shocked by the unexpected amount that I almost gasped. $15 million? Yes, use it all as you like. And why don't you come back home for a while until things settle down? Maybe I will return home for now." "Sorry for everything," I replied and ended the call. I decided to live at my parents' house, where they warmly welcomed me. A few days later, I received a barrage of calls from my ex-husband. Over 30 missed calls. While checking the call log, I decided to answer, despite my suspicions. "Emily, finally you picked up. Vertical bar, what do you want now? Listen, that woman can't clean or cook, and now she's quit her job to be a full-time housewife?" He probably meant Catherine. "So, I couldn't care less about your love life," I responded coldly. "Wait, don't hang up. You can't live without me, right? I'll kick her out, so come back to me," John pleaded. "I told you before, I'm a president's daughter. My father owns a financial company. Recently, he gave me a living inheritance. It's $15 million. You never cared, so you wouldn't know what my father does or even imagine it. Haha. What's this about $15 million? That can't be true. I never heard anything like that when we were married." Indeed, I had never properly told John that my father was a company president and that I was his daughter. Because of our family's wealth, I often attracted men who were only after money when I talked about my father's job. Until I married John, I had been deceived by many men who were after my family's money, so I had always hidden the fact that my father was a president and we were wealthy. Even after getting married, since my parents lived abroad for a long time, John rarely met them and never knew about the company. We never held our marriage greetings at my parents' house but at a restaurant, so John had never seen their mansion. "But you worked normally, didn't you?" I was working because my father said it was part of my social education." "I didn't know that. I didn't tell you. When my parents returned from abroad and wanted to meet you, you were already having an affair and were abusive. How could I introduce you to them?" "Ha!" John, now mumbling and hanging his head, seemed to have an idea and suddenly looked up. "But wait, you said you received a living inheritance, right? That money you got before we divorced should be divided between us. I'm going to be rich too." He seemed overjoyed. Did he even like Catherine, or was he always just after the money? He betrayed me for an affair, but ultimately he's just chasing after money. A hopeless case. Just so you know, the assets I inherited as a living gift are my separate property and not subject to division in the divorce. You're really stupid. So stupid it's disgusting. Haha. No way, I could hear him crumbling over the phone. Anyway, I'm hanging up. I don't want to talk to a man who sees women as tools. Disgusting. Bye. I hung up without waiting for his response. I felt relieved, having finally voiced all the frustrations I couldn't express before due to fear of my husband. 6 months later, I filed for compensation against John for his abuse and affair. The amount was $20,000. The court case ended smoothly without any complications due to the solid evidence. I didn't want to see my ex-husband, but according to my father's lawyer, John appeared in court financially and mentally stressed, looking disheveled. It was truly ironic. As for me, I started arranged dating and met a wonderful younger man. After 2 years of dating, we got married last year. My current husband, of course, has been wholeheartedly supportive of our fertility treatment, and we finally managed to conceive. I am currently pregnant. Although I am an older mother at 38, there are many anxieties, but I can't help but feel excited about what's to come.
This is your punishment for ordering me around, LOL. On a deserted beach in the middle of the night, I was left behind by Tom. His car, which abandoned me, zoomed away at a breakneck speed. Having received a sudden call that my mother collapsed late at night, I was on my way to the hospital, relying on Tom.
But now, I have been abruptly left behind. Shock and sadness from Tom's betrayal brought endless tears to my eyes. It would probably take nearly 3 hours to get to the hospital where my mom was taken. Drenched with tears and sweat, I started to walk single-mindedly. Why must I endure this kind of treatment? Memories of the days spent with Tom come to mind, but while walking, I noticed that I gradually regained my composure. At the same time, the sadness of being betrayed turned into anger. I will never forgive you. I'll make you regret putting me through this for the rest of your life, swearing revenge on Tom. I steadfastly continued to walk towards the hospital. My name is Emily Johnson, a 47-year-old office worker. I've worked at a computer-related company since graduating from college because I've been bad at socializing since I was young. My parents both raised me strictly, and I was good at studying from my elementary school days. However, while being a quiet person, I often felt looked down upon by others and gradually preferred being alone. Living attentively to others and feeling stress from it simply exhausts me. I went on to higher education, as my parents said. Even though I didn't particularly find something I wanted to do in high school or college. In my college days, while everyone else enjoyed a lively life with circles and mixers, I spent an nondescript 4 years. Even so, I made a few close friends during my college days. One of them was a classmate, Catherine White. Catherine and I often attended the same lectures and naturally started talking more. Initially, Catherine, who was modest and adult-like just like me, changed as the academic years progressed. Her clothes and makeup gradually became flashier, and she began to hang out with the kind of people I'm not good with. Nevertheless, Catherine treated me the same way she did when we first met, adapting to my pace. In the university, Catherine was always with a different man, looking like a completely different person from the old Catherine. Still, I was very pleased that she remained friends with me. After graduating, we continued to interact, going out to eat and play regularly. I had a few other friends from my college days, but all of them had a not-so-good impression of Catherine. I don't want to speak ill since she's your friend, Emily, but be careful with Catherine. They all said something to that effect. The change in my relationship with Catherine occurred when we turned 43. Suddenly, there was an invitation from Catherine to join a mixer. I became wary just at the word mixer and indirectly turned down the offer. But surprisingly, Catherine was still single and was thinking of getting married. So she was organizing a mixer. I have no experience with men at this age, and I couldn't even think about dating someone now. The name mixer at this age. I can't. While I said that, mingling laughter, Catherine responded with a serious expression. I also want to start considering my partner seriously. There won't be flippant people like before, so don't worry. Perhaps because she knew I had watched her relationships with men for many years. Catherine emphasized serious encounters. Overwhelmed by her passion, I accepted Catherine's invitation, but I don't know if it will lead to a relationship. There's no guarantee I'll get along with someone. I was worried about embarrassing Catherine, the organizer, but she was delighted with my participation. A few days later, the promised day arrived. Dressed unusually stylish for this day, I arrived at the meeting place 30 minutes before the appointed time. Despite being puzzled by the crowd, I waited for the time to come when a man approached and spoke to me. "Excuse me. Are you attending Miss White's dinner party?" The man who spoke was petite and boyish looking, easily mistaken for someone in his 20s at first glance. I learned that he had decided to attend through a connection of friends with Catherine. He introduced himself as Tom Johnson and was only 2 years younger than me. His hair was dyed a bright color and gave off a slightly flirtatious impression, but sincerity could be sensed in his manner of speaking. I felt a strange familiarity with Tom, who laughed that he had arrived early because he was nervous. After a while, the members gathered, and the dinner party began. Although I spoke with other men, my eyes were following only Tom. "Emily, you like Mr. Johnson, don't you?" Catherine, who went to the bathroom at the same time, said this while touching up her makeup. Afterwards, with Catherine acting as a go-between, I exchanged contact information with Tom. I wondered if I was the only one getting carried away and being a bother. But Tom readily agreed, saying, "Let's go for a meal again." Catherine seemed very disappointed that she didn't find a compatible man at this matchmaking event. I apologized many times for being the only one who had luck. But she smiled and sent me off, saying, "Why are you apologizing?" After that, I went out for meals with Tom several times, and we began dating. Being inexperienced with men at this age feels somewhat heavy, doesn't it? Although I said this many times, Tom would kindly embrace me. About 3 years later, at the age of 46, I was proposed to by Tom and we got married. I still can't believe I got married and am living a fluffy life. Tom worked in sales at a major cosmetics company. But considering our ages, we gave up on having children. I continued to work and supported Tom's life while working. However, about half a year after starting our married life, changes began to appear in Tom's behavior. The once kind Tom began to verbally abuse me. "Then you're so damn annoying. Why do I have to be considerate to you?" Tom, who kicked the garbage bin and chair in the room while saying this, calmed down after a while and apologized while crying. Whether it was because work was busy and he had no spare time, or stress was accumulating due to pressure, I listened to Tom's story and stayed by his side until he calmed down. Feeling bad to consult with Catherine, who got involved, I remained silent about my relationship with Tom. Tom's behavior escalates, taking advantage of my kindness and silence. Even after work ends, there are fewer days when he comes straight home, coming home late every night. Even when I was worried and asked the reason, he just rampaged saying, "Stop nagging." Is every man like this? Having little experience in romance, I was unable to do anything while feeling doubtful about Tom's behavior. Amidst this, a friend from my university days came to visit my house. No matter what you think about it, that's strange. Speaking laughingly about my married life, my friend said this with a serious face. "But he's usually kind, right?" He apologizes after rampaging like that. Saying this, my friend shook her head left and right, uttering, "I'm appalled. You're being taken lightly because you don't say anything? Emily, if you go on like this, he'll do whatever he wants to you, and it'll become irreversible." However, I've never been physically abused by Tom. Isn't it okay for him to come home a bit disorderly every day because he's tired from work? If I nag too much, I might be hated by Tom, who married someone like me. I responded lightly to my friend and reflected on whether I had done something wrong. A few days later, I bravely decided to talk to Catherine about my married life with him. Tom's late returns, his rampages and harsh words when he's in a bad mood. That's quite common with men. He's probably saying those things because he's jealous of you, Emily. The answer from Catherine was just as I expected. Everyone has some troubles in their marriage. I want to make life as pleasant as possible for Tom, who chose someone like me. It's just a matter of me being a bit patient. Grateful to Catherine, who listens even to such worries. I once again resolved to do my best as a good wife. Life with Tom remained the same, but following Catherine's advice, I played the part of a good wife with even more patience than before. It was a late Saturday night. That day both Tom and I were off, and Tom had gone to play pachinko in the morning and returned in the late afternoon. He seemed to have lost spectacularly as usual, and I sensed his bad mood the moment he opened the door to the house. I concentrated all my nerves to interact with Tom in a way that would not irritate him and avoid doing anything that might upset him. Nevertheless, Tom, who scolded me heavily for things like the timing of dinner being late or the bath being too lukewarm, went to sleep late at night. Now that the rampaging Tom had calmed down, I finally managed to relax. I started watching a drama I had been looking forward to on online streaming, being careful not to make any noise so as not to wake Tom up. But I must have been very tired. Before I knew it, I had fallen asleep on the sofa. The next time I regained consciousness was when my smartphone, set to manners mode, made a loud noise on the desk. Though no, if Tom wakes up first, I'll get scolded again. In a fluster, I grabbed the smartphone on the desk and checked the screen, but it was past midnight. Although the smartphone was not vibrating because of an alarm, because of an incoming call, while my head was still groggy and not fully awake, the name displayed on the screen snapped me to attention. Dad, my heart fluttered at the characters reading father displayed on the screen. A call in the middle of the night like this, surely something must have happened. Convinced of bad news, I answered the call. Emily, is that you? Just now? Your mom collapsed when she got up to go to the bathroom, and I called an ambulance. Right now, we're at the hospital getting her checked. Dad, on the other side of the phone, was clearly shaken and had lost his usual calm demeanor. Anyway, I want you to come to the hospital as soon as possible, Emily. While panicking, I asked for the location of the hospital and hung up. I hurriedly got ready and realized something just as I reached the entrance. I can't drive. At this hour, I can't use public transportation either. It's an emergency situation involving my mother-in-law. Surely, if I wake Tom up, he will willingly lend me the car. I rushed into the bedroom where Tom was sleeping and shook his sleeping body. Tom. At my call, Tom began to grumble irritably. Off. Stop being so noisy. I told Tom, who was writhing in irritation with his eyes still closed, that my mother had collapsed. Quickly, get the car. Losing patience with Tom, who continues to writhe in bed, I raised my voice. Then, with a light click of his tongue, Tom finally threw off the futon and got up. Yeah. Tom, still in his sweats, grabbed the car keys and briskly walked toward the car, leaving me behind. And I'm really sorry for this time. As I got into the car, I told Tom which hospital my mother had been taken to and apologized to him over and over again. The two of us rode in silence as the car sped along the deserted road toward the hospital. When we reached the coast, where the sea was visible to our left, Tom suddenly stopped the car. Sorry. Can you get me a coffee from the vending machine over there to wake me up? It's quite something to be made to drive at this unearthly hour. My head probably isn't clear due to sleepiness. So I nod silently, opened the car door, and jogged toward the vending machine. Tom can't drink black, so something sweet would be good, right? After pressing the button for the sweetest looking coffee, just in case, I pressed the buttons for a lightly sweetened one and a café au lait. The moment I pick up the can from the dispensing slot and turn around, Tom opens the car window. This is your punishment for ordering me around, LOL. Just when I thought Tom yelled towards me, the car suddenly sped away. Huh? I stand aghast, staring at Tom's car as it zooms away at breakneck speed. Unable to comprehend what just happened. What did Tom shout toward me through the open window? Punishment for ordering him around? As I stand in front of the vending machine holding the canned coffee, night bugs drawn to the machine's light collide with me. It took a while before the meaning of Tom's words and the reality of my situation began to sink in. Were those words really meant for me? Was it some kind of joke? However, gradually recalling my mother's emergency, I almost unconsciously started walking along the coastline. While being blown by the tepid sea breeze, I just keep walking along the deserted beach. Walking helps my panicking mind slowly regain calmness. I was left behind by Tom. He lied about wanting coffee just to get me out of the car, didn't he? He left me here on purpose, with complete malice. Even though I've always loved Tom and trusted him since we met, does Tom not love me? That can't be. Usually after he yells at me, he apologizes kindly and he nags because he cares about me. I seem to have put on my sneakers barefoot in my haste. My bare feet, rubbed by the shoes, begin to throb painfully. Between the pain in my feet and betrayal from Tom, tears uncontrollably begin to spill from my eyes. Why? Why is this happening? Memories from the time I met Tom till now race through my mind. Although worried about my mother, the sorrow of being betrayed by my first love was overwhelming. Letting tears flow incessantly from my eyes, I still continue to walk resolutely. It's only now that I realize I left even my smartphone in the car. My husband has left me, his wife, alone in a deserted place in the middle of the night, unable to call for help. If he loved me, he should have hurriedly come to rescue me. If he comes back now, says sorry, and embraces me, I would forgive everything. Although he should have noticed the smartphone on the seat by now. There's no sign of his car returning. With my messed up head and face, I proceed along the seemingly eternal road. It was unclear how much time had passed. But when the sensation in my legs finally gave way to fatigue, the hospital finally came into view. Upon entering the premises, I sought out the after-hours entrance and gave my mother's name. Due to the long walk, my legs were in severe pain. My name is Barbara Karen. The security guard, after hearing my mother's name, called somewhere, and then kindly opened the inner door for me. Although I was bewildered after passing through the door, soon, the tapping of approaching footsteps could be heard from the opposite direction. "Are you Miss Barbara's daughter?" The nurse who appeared around the corner confirmed my name and took me to the waiting room where my father was. In a corner of the dark hallway, several chairs were lined up, and my father was standing in front of them, visibly unsettled. "Emily, what on earth have you been doing until now?" My father noticed me and looked astonished seeing me, sweaty and limping. Upon seeing my father, I heaved a large sigh and collapsed into a chair. Then, as calmly as possible, I explained to my father what had happened. What on earth is he thinking? Although usually calm, my father frowned and grew angry at Tom's actions. From the time I left the house with Tom to the time I arrived at the hospital, roughly 3 hours had passed. The anger and disappointment towards Tom were intense, but I was also worried about my mother. My father, who was shocked by my terrible state and oblivious to his surroundings, finally informed me about my mother's condition. Fortunately, she had regained consciousness about an hour before my arrival at the hospital and was now resting in the intensive care unit. Neither I or Tom could be reached by phone. Fearing something had happened to the two of us, my father was considerably worried. While talking to my father, I could feel my feelings for Tom cooling rapidly. When I go home, I'll tell him clearly. Today, the unease I had been feeling until now was correct. Feeling terribly pathetic and foolish for having been led by such a man, I finally woke up. I decided to break up with Tom and waited for my mother's condition to stabilize. As my father and I sat in the hallway chairs waiting, his mobile phone signaled an incoming call. Yes, that's right. My father, answering the phone, seemed momentarily shocked but soon nodded and listened to the conversation. "Well, both my daughter and I are here, but..." After hanging up, my father turned towards me and spoke. "It seems that Tom has been brought here." I involuntarily let out a strange sound and stared intently into my father's eyes. The call was from this hospital, informing us that Tom had been brought in on an emergency basis right after I had arrived. Apparently, after leaving me behind, Tom had bought alcohol and returned home. After getting drunk and causing a commotion, he fell down the stairs. When the ambulance arrived, Tom was found collapsed, covered in blood. I was simply astounded before I even began to worry about Tom. Abandoning his wife in the middle of nowhere in the dead of night, and now this? Knowing his mother-in-law was in the hospital, he's having a drinking spree. The shame of living with such a man was unbearable. I heard that Tom had been treated and taken to a room. I'm sure as soon as he sees me, he'll start ranting, "It's all your fault." Although I used to love him so much, now all I can think of are his faults. I'm embarrassed to be known as the wife of such a man at the hospital. I trudged to the reception desk, asked for Tom's room number, and visited him alone. On the bed, Tom was lying down, wrapped in bandages around his head and body. Seeing me enter the room, he glared angrily and began to speak. It was obvious he was using me as a vent for his stress, in contrast to his pitiful appearance. "Where have you been? Here I am in this condition. Ultimately, it's all because of you. Let's break up." "What?" I finally woken up. "Did you always think everything would go your way? Whenever you're in a bad mood, you throw tantrums like a child, crying and looking down at the immobilized Tom." I lashed out at him, letting out all the pent-up feelings I had been holding back. "And you've probably been cheating too, haven't you? I'm ashamed I married such a pathetic man. Truly ashamed." As I unintentionally raised my voice, clear fear began to appear in Tom's eyes. "Tom." At that moment, a woman suddenly rushed into the room. I turned to see Catherine standing there. Catherine. In that instant, I realized everything. Tom and Catherine had been having an affair. Thinking back, when I confided in Catherine, she would often say things like men are like that, trying to force me into accepting the situation. Now, I can't help but laugh. Catherine's eyes widened in shock as she frantically denied the allegations. "Catherine, don't you realize you're being deceived by such a pathetic man? You're truly pitiable." I glared at the two of them and started walking towards the entrance of the room. "Goodbye. But don't think this is the end of it." I paused and turned back with a smirk. The next day, although my mother was recovering well, she decided to stay in the hospital for a while as a precaution. Seeing my mother's face, I was relieved and immediately returned home and began packing my belongings. Tom was unable to move yet and was forced to stay in the hospital for a while. I was betrayed by my husband and friend at the same time, but my mind was filled with thoughts of how to make them suffer. Suddenly, I decided to open the door to the study, which Tom had told me not to enter. He must have let his guard down, thinking I was an obedient wife and wouldn't dare disobey his orders. On the desk in the study, there was a photo sticker of Catherine. Hugging him tightly, was carelessly placed. Really, it's all just pathetic. I captured them with my smartphone camera and left the house we had lived in together. After returning home and putting away my luggage, I headed to a law firm introduced to me by a friend, based on their reputation in dealing with marital disputes. When I explained everything that had happened and showed the photo sticker of Tom and Catherine, the lawyer smiled contentedly. "There is more than enough material here. The two of them will regret this for the rest of their lives." Although I felt a bit frightened by my own calmness, I moved forward, thinking of it as retribution for what had been done to me. The next day, early in the morning, I received a call from Tom. "What the hell did you do?" "I get fired from my company." I could visualize Tom, crying and screaming on the other end of the phone. In reality, I had called Tom's company the day before, pretending to be a good wife. And you might have heard from my husband, but it's utterly embarrassing. He got drunk, caused a scene, and fell down the stairs. Huh? No, it wasn't a traffic accident. Indeed, Tom had falsely reported to his company that he was hospitalized due to a traffic accident. Knowing this, I deliberately played dumb when contacting his company. When they realized it was a false report and started asking questions, which I had anticipated, I meticulously explained everything, disclosing that he left me stranded in the middle of the night and was having an affair. Just as I planned, Tom, who had been conducting business as the face of the company, was fired. Perhaps they thought it was only a matter of time before a man who commits such vile acts in his daily life would bring harm to the company. Furthermore, to add insult to injury, a claim for compensation was presented to Tom. Catherine also received notice, and the two of them had to pay a substantial amount in damages. When they were told that the carelessly abandoned photo sticker had become evidence, Catherine relentlessly blamed and scolded Tom. Although they had been blinded by momentary desire and loved each other, in the end, their relationship was nothing more than that. Assigning blame to one another does not solve the problem. The two of them quickly broke up in a big fight and lost everything. Tom not only lost his job but also had to sell his house. It seems that Catherine's bad reputation spread quickly, and she also lost her job. Although she apologized several times through tears, of course, such things cannot be accepted. I intend to have them reflect on the consequences of betraying others for a lifetime. Having officially finalized my divorce with Tom, I was once again single. Life, which had continued for several years, returned to the quiet daily routine of before. As if it had all been a lie, I took a considerable amount in damages from the two of them and took a break for a while. Also taking care of my mother. In such situations, people might go on a heart-healing journey, right? Having returned to my parents' home, I thought about such things while reflecting on the frenetic events of these past few weeks. During this time, my mother made a smooth recovery and was able to return home for her recuperation. She seemed somewhat apologetic upon learning about the events that had led to the divorce. I wonder if it's my fault that all of this happened, I responded with a smile, denying her self-blame. No, it was more of an awakening. Really? I'm embarrassed that I ever married someone like him. Nonetheless, she still expressed concerns about her daughter, repeatedly asking, I wonder if there's no one suitable out there. Friends who had learned of the situation comforted her while also scolding her. However, they appeared somewhat relieved and repeated how they had warned her many times to be careful with Catherine. This time, you just happened to run into a bad guy. Take your time to find someone good again. I can't even think about the next romantic relationship at the moment. But I wonder if the day will come when I'll love someone again. After feeling for so long that happiness isn't solely about being in love, my feelings are quite complicated. However, no matter what, I have a substantial amount of money now. I might seem like a woman without a trace of romance, but I'm happy now. Especially compared to those days when I was constantly frightened by Tom. I plan to take advantage of my parents' generosity for a while and live as I please. If I start feeling lonely again, I'm sure I'll have another good encounter. Through this experience, I discover the courage to face challenges and an unexpected side of myself, the belief that I can do it. Yes, with this, I can do anything. And so, I took a new step forward.
My name is Rose. I'm 34 years old, and I live with my husband Mark. We both work at the company that my father-in-law founded. My father-in-law has already retired, but he built up a small construction company into a business, with annual sales of $173 million. It seems that he played hardball, like acquiring rival construction companies, but everyone praises his business skills. My husband, who was to follow in his father's steps, had a pampered upbringing as their only son and has a gentle character that doesn't seem to really apply in this harsh, cold world. Although being gentle sounds nice, in reality he is an indecisive person who can't make decisions about anything, and I started to feel that he was unsuitable as both a husband and a company manager. Even my husband would say things like, "I'm not cut out to be a manager, so even if I become the CEO, I'll probably just only look like a CEO. That's easier for me." Showing that he wasn't seriously thinking about taking over the company. We've been married for 5 years now, but recently I've been particularly dissatisfied with my husband's lack of initiative. In contrast to my husband, I consider myself a decisive person, and when my father-in-law was active, he seemed to like that about me and gave me various jobs. Before I got married, I used to work at a bank, so I always work while paying attention to the numbers. I quit the bank when I got married, intending to become a full-time housewife, but my father-in-law asked me to work at the construction company, so I decided to do that. Shortly after I started working, my father-in-law started inviting me to meetings, where board members would participate and asked for my opinions about management. At first, the directors seemed to question why the founder's daughter-in-law was invited to important meetings, but as I gave appropriate opinions, they started to listen to me. My husband was also a director, but he didn't participate in the meetings, and both the directors and my father-in-law seemed to think that was normal at this point. After the meetings, when I returned home, my husband would be watching TV with a carefree look on his face. "Why didn't you attend today's meeting? You're an important director. You need to be aware of that." As I spoke angrily, my husband argued, thinking that he did nothing wrong. "Even if I attend, I don't understand the content of the discussions well, and the directors like you better, so there's no problem, right?" I wonder if he doesn't like me participating in the board meetings because he said such things like that. My father-in-law has been teaching me about running the company in detail, and it seems like he wants me to be his successor. At first, I was also new to the management, but I started to enjoy the work. Before I knew it, I was working hard to live up to my father-in-law's expectations. About 2 years after I started attending meetings, my father-in-law fully retired. The directors also started consulting me when they needed to make important decisions, and my husband was being ignored. I thought that if such a situation like this happened, my husband would regret and devote himself more to his work. But on the contrary, he became less dedicated than ever before. He would go to work in the morning, but he would go out somewhere before noon and then return home. Even when he saw me at home, he wouldn't talk about work, and it seemed he didn't care about the company at all. On the other hand, I was getting busier as my work at the company increased. After my father-in-law retired, the executives started relying more on me, and I was assigned tasks more like a CEO. It's a big company with many employees, and for the sake of those employees, I was doing my best to increase the company's sales and profits. With the efforts of the employees, sales began to increase, and I became more interested in managing the company and became absorbed in my work. On the other hand, my husband seemed to lose interest in work, and he began to show up at the company less and less. The conversations between us at home decreased, and our relationship became strained. And during that time, my husband came home and began to say this: "I ran into Maria today and we had lunch together." He casually mentioned this. My sister is 2 years older than me, and she had just divorced half a year ago. The cause of the divorce was my sister's affair, and it caused a big commotion when my sister's angry husband stormed into our parents' house. My husband went to my parents' house to calm my sister's husband, as I was busy at work. Having a pampered upbringing and being gentle, my husband persuaded my sister's husband, who reluctantly left at that time, and my sister later said, "The company's CEO is really amazing." He led my husband back home, who was really enraged. She was praising my husband. My husband, with his calm attitude and laid-back way of speaking, probably managed to defuse my sister's angry husband. My sister was able to divorce her husband after paying alimony, but it seemed that her view of my husband changed after this incident. Until then, she seemed to consider my husband, who was not particularly good-looking and indecisive, as nothing more than a rich guy. But she seemed to have convinced herself that he was a reputable company executive. My sister also became single after her divorce, and she always loved rich people. So to her, my husband must have seemed like a good catch. But I, who was absorbed in my work, never imagined such a thing would happen. And of course, my sister would not know that my husband is just a director and is not involved in the management of the company. My sister's divorced husband was an elite employee at a foreign company, and she was bragging to me at their wedding. "My husband is an excellent employee, so his salary is high and he's handsome. So you must be jealous." Indeed, my sister's ex-husband was good-looking and sharp-minded, and he always gave off a stylish vibe when he was talking. I couldn't understand why my sister, who had such a wonderful husband, would have an affair. 3 months had passed since my husband told me he had dinner with my sister.
"Rose, I need to talk to you."
Hearing those words from my husband for the first time gave me a bad feeling. As I nervously waited for him to speak,
"Actually, your sister is pregnant with my child, so I want a divorce."
I was shocked at the divorce request, but even more surprised to learn that my sister was pregnant. As I was left speechless, my husband continued,
"On my next day off, your sister is going to come here and have a discussion, so please, cooperate."
Bewildered by his request, I asked my husband, "So, you want to marry my sister?" Seeing the troubled look on my husband's face,
"I don't necessarily want to get married, but if a child is involved, there's no choice."
Frustrated with my indecisive husband, I answered with a sigh, "Well, if there's a child involved, there's no choice. Let's talk about the future when my sister comes." Knowing that I wouldn't be able to decide anything by talking to my husband, I decided to meet my sister directly. Although I was thinking about a divorce, I had to discuss the company's matters with my father-in-law. As the wife of the founder's son, I was involved in the company's management, but after the divorce, I would just be a stranger. The next day, I went to my in-law's house and told my father-in-law what my husband had said. My mother-in-law, who was present, was happy that my husband had a child, but she became quiet when my father-in-law glared at her. It seems my mother-in-law cares more about her grandchildren than the company's management. After thinking for a while, my father-in-law spoke with a smile.
"Rose, I want you to continue participating in the company's management as usual. I don't care about Mark. I will take the responsibility, so let him do as he likes."
It seems my father-in-law cares more about the company's management than his son or grandchildren. Although he has retired, my father-in-law still has a say in the company, and he owns a large portion of the company's shares, so there are no executives who would oppose to his will. I was also finding the job interesting, so it was regrettable to give it up at this point. Now that the work issue has been settled, it's time to talk about the future with my sister. My sister, who visited our house on her day off, smiled and said, "It's too bad you couldn't have a child, Rose, isn't it? I'll give you a lot of alimony. Please, leave this house immediately." She spoke with a victorious smirk. My husband just kept silent, merely listening to our conversation without saying anything. Despite being the very cause of the problem, my husband just sat there, with an uninterested look on his face, which left me flabbergasted. I'm fine with a divorce, but we need to talk about compensation and division of property. I think it's best to get a lawyer and make everything clear. I never thought you would fall for someone like Mark, who's nothing special. I responded to my sister sarcastically. For a moment, my sister gave me a stern look, but her face quickly returned to a smirk. I finally understand that it's not about looks, but what's inside that matters with men. I was amused by her claiming to fully understand my husband, and while trying not to laugh, I said, "That's good for you then. I hope you and Mark live happily together." She might have been talking about his money. She seemed to assume that my husband was the CEO of my father-in-law's company, but it appeared she hadn't heard anything from him. After the discussion ended, my sister stated she would start living here. As she had brought a moving company, I took only the essentials and left. Knowing my quick-to-act sister, I had predicted this would happen, and had already arranged for a new apartment. I had hired a lawyer and had all the paperwork ready for property division and claiming compensation. The next day, after I had moved all my belongings, I began negotiations for compensation and property division with my husband and sister along with my lawyer. My husband was present, still acting as if he was unrelated to this, and only my sister spoke. "As I said before, I'll pay whatever compensation you want. Just decide on your own." Hearing her words, my lawyer decided to claim compensation from my sister, in addition to my husband. My sister was still making payments on compensation claimed by her ex-husband, so the lawyer had previously advised me that claiming from her might be impossible. But since she said she'd pay anything, we decided to claim from her as well. When it came to property division, my sister said cheerfully, "This mansion is originally Mark's family property, so it wouldn't be part of the property division, right?" With an expressionless face, my lawyer answered her, "This building and land are owned by the company, so it's up to the company to decide." It seemed like my husband also thought this house belonged to his father, and he said, "Is that so? I thought this house belonged to my father," he asked, seemingly without much surprise. On the other hand, my sister turned to the lawyer. "Wait a minute. So, you're saying I can't live in this house?" The lawyer replied in an uptight way, "It's owned by the company, so if the company approves, you can continue living here." At these words, my sister seemed to relax a bit. "Why didn't you say that sooner? Since Mark, the CEO, will be living here, it should be fine, right?" The lawyer looked surprised for a moment, then burst out laughing. "What are you talking about? Your sister here is the CEO, not Mark." I laughed as I watched my sister, who was planning to remarry Mark, not knowing this fact. My sister immediately turned to Mark and shouted, What? Mark, you're not the CEO? Seeing Mark's troubled expression, I stepped in to explain to my sister. Mark is just an advisor without any executive power. I'm an executive officer, but they made me the CEO too. Mark's father, the founder, had been the CEO for a long time, but when he retired, he made me an executive officer and even appointed me as the CEO. The other directors also valued my accomplishments, so there was no opposition. On the other hand, my husband was made an advisor without executive power due to my father-in-law's arrangement. He received a director's salary, but he didn't actually have any work to do. So the amount was less than that of an ordinary employee. That's why I was the one who covered all our living expenses. My husband, who never worried about our household finances, didn't care whether the house he lived in was owned by the company or by my father-in-law. Although the house was owned by the company, my responsible father-in-law had been charging me rent, so I had always considered it to be a regular rental property. The lawyer asked me, laughing,
So, is it okay to continue renting this house to Mark?
My sister reacted to the word rent in the lawyer's question. What do you mean by rent? You're going to charge Mark for it? It's company property, isn't it? Make it free! The lawyer, laughing again at my sister's words, presented the amount of rent. My sister was surprised to see the amount, and it seemed that it was the first time my husband knew about the rent too.
So, a big house like this does have high rent. With my salary, I can't afford it.
With his board member salary, if he pays the rent, he would be left with almost no money, making it impossible for him to live. Regarding the division of property, during our 5-year marriage, my husband used up all of his small board member salary, and my salary disappeared due to the expensive rent and living expenses. We didn't have much savings left, just enough to split the savings in half. After the lawyer left, my sister, who had been hoping for a mansion, was completely deflated when she found out it was rented, and was standing there in a daze. My husband was smiling as usual, so I suggested, Since your mother was happy that you're having a child, why don't you move out of here and go back to your parents' house? My husband agreed, but I found it funny that I had to be so considerate to my soon-to-be ex-husband. I was worried about whether such a helpless husband could raise a child, but it wasn't my concern, so I decided to leave. To my sister, who seemed to have forgotten about her own alimony, I asked, Sis, are you sure about the alimony payment? You were talking big, but you're still paying the alimony for your ex-husband, right? I talked to her just to confirm, but my sister, who looked like she had come to her senses, was surprised. Wait, do I have to pay alimony too? To my surprised sister, who seemed like she hadn't been listening to anything discussed today, my husband quickly responded.
You did say I can give you plenty of alimony, but you weren't expecting that from me, were you? My salary is really low.
My husband and my sister looked at each other, both with surprised expressions. I'm not a lawyer, but watching their exchange, I felt like bursting into laughter. As far as I was concerned, I already had their signatures on the divorce papers and the alimony claim documents, so I didn't care. But my husband and my sister seemed pathetic to me. My ex-husband, who had remarried my sister, seemed to have gone back to his parents' house, as I had advised, but I heard that my sister and her in-laws were constantly fighting. The main cause was that it turned out that my sister was not really pregnant with my ex-husband's child, and his mother, who had been expecting an heir, was furious. My ex-father-in-law, who seemed to have disliked my sister for taking his son away from me, didn't even talk to her. As for the alimony, my ex-father-in-law paid on my husband's behalf, and I received the full amount. But when my sister saw this, she asked her father-in-law,
"Father-in-law, please, pay my alimony as well."
In response to this, the father-in-law argued back,
You have no right to call me father.
and he yelled at her. Having received none of what she had hoped for, my sister fled from her husband's family home without a word and has been missing since. It's too stupid that she remarried my ex-husband just to bear the burden of alimony. My ex-husband seemed to want to get back together with me, but he was scolded by his father.
Someone like you shouldn't even think about having a family, especially since you can't even manage your own affairs properly.
Even if my ex-husband asked me to get back together with him, I would never consider getting back together with him. I lost trust in him when he cheated on me with my sister, and I was appalled by his indifferent attitude during our discussions. My ex-husband was dismissed from his board position and resigned, and now he seems to be working as a temporary staff member. Meanwhile, I'm still the CEO of the company, and I am enjoying my work so much that I'm not considering remarriage. Even after parting with my ex-husband, I keep in touch with my father-in-law and receive advice from him when I'm in trouble. For now, I want to dedicate myself to the company and work hard for the sake of all my employees, as if I am married to my work.
She's 20 years younger than me, and she's pregnant, so let's get a divorce.
Suddenly, my husband brings his mistress to our home, and then he asks me for a divorce. Honestly, our marriage has been falling apart for a while now. I no longer love my husband, who goes out without taking care of our children or doing any household chores. Okay, here's the divorce papers. I'm taking everyone except our oldest son. I hand over the divorce papers to my husband and say that to him. Then my husband says something shocking.
Huh? You can take our oldest son too.
I couldn't believe it. That's impossible because this child is... When I confronted him with the truth, my husband was dumbfounded and fell to his knees. I am Catherine, and I'm 51 years old. I'm a housewife. I got married to my husband, John, 14 years ago. Our meeting was through a mutual introduction. In the past, I worked at a web design company as a web designer, focused on my work, and haven't had any romance for many years. And my colleagues introduced me to him because they were worried about me. My husband was friendly and good at having conversations. Even though I hadn't been much into dating, the time I spent with my husband was fun, and I thought we could build a fun family if we got married. However, the journey to marriage was not easy. My husband was a divorcee and had a child. It seemed that his previous wife had left the house, leaving the child behind, and he said he was working while raising the child. When I consulted with my family and friends about it, they all told me it was definitely better not to marry him.
"You'll struggle after marriage."
Everyone would say the same thing to me. But for me, even this obstacle only ignited my feelings of love for John. I thought I had to support him, who was a single father. Since then, I have been meeting with my husband's eldest son, Alex, more frequently. Alex, what are you going to play today?
"I'm not playing with you."
Then, do you want to eat something? I'll cook anything for you.
"No."
Alex didn't trust me at all. I wonder if it's because I have no experience in raising a child. When I felt anxious, my husband always comforted me.
It's okay. Alex will understand someday. Thank you for taking my son so seriously.
I was happy to hear that, so I was okay even if I was rejected by my eldest son. I'll love him like my own child when we get married.
I'm glad you love Alex and that I met you.
When I think about it now, I might have been conceited, thinking that I was mentally supporting my husband. And then, half a year into dating, I found out I was pregnant and we got married. My eldest daughter, Cherry, and my second son, Albert, were born the following year, and I became a mother of 3. Since I gave birth to 2 kids, I was swamped with childcare every single day. However, my husband didn't help me at all.
Catherine, Albert is crying.
Can you comfort him for a bit? I can't take my hands off right now.
Me? No way. He wants his mother, doesn't he?
My husband, who pushed my crying second son onto me while I was taking care of my eldest daughter, would just play around with his smartphone. My husband always came home late and was drunk. On his days off, he went out casually and came home in the evening, so there was no time for him to do any childcare or even any time for me to talk with my husband. And I didn't have time to sleep, taking care of the children every day. Stress just kept building up.
Can you help me a bit?
Huh? I'm tired from work. What's a person who's at home all day saying? Raising a child is a woman's job.
I couldn't believe it. If I knew he was like this, I wouldn't have married him. I felt deceived. But when I thought about my newborn children, I couldn't divorce easily. Taking care of my rebellious Albert and Cherry, who were in their terrible 2s, was really hard. Still, I tried desperately to become their mother. The relationship with Alex remained distant, and he hardly spoke to me. I woke him up in the morning and fed him to send him to elementary school, but we hardly had any conversation. I was too busy taking care of the younger children and didn't have the capacity to care about Alex. Several years later, when the eldest son became a junior high school student, he entered his rebellious phase.
Alex,
Have you finished your homework instead of reading comic books all the time?
Shut up.
Shut up? I'm saying this for your own good, you know.
That's why it's so annoying. Don't play the mother role.
This is what Alex would always spout and not listen to what I say. In the end, I decided to consult with my husband about Alex's behavior. Could you try talking to Alex a bit? He's not studying, just playing all day, and he doesn't listen to anything I say. Is this because of his rebellious phase?
Isn't that because of the way you raised him? Because you neglected him so far, he doesn't listen, right?
What? I don't want to hear that from you, who didn't do any parenting and just played around.
You think I was just playing around?
John, enraged, stood up. No, you're always out drinking. You never help me when I'm busy.
I can't help it if I have social commitments. This is part of my job too. You're living off my salary. Don't act so arrogant.
I couldn't say anything to that. I quit my job because parenting was busy. My living expenses are solely the money my husband provides for me. He only gives me the bare minimum, so we're barely making a living. Of course, I don't have any money that I can use freely. That's why when it comes to money, I can't talk back to him. However, Alex's behavior is getting worse and worse, and there are days when he doesn't come home until late at night, even though he's in middle school. I thought he was going to become a delinquent or something at this rate. Despite my best efforts to persuade both Alex and my husband, they wouldn't listen. Before I knew it, I was fighting with my husband every day. And then the days when my husband didn't come home increase. This lifestyle continued for many years. I was past 50 and Alex was a senior in high school. I thought we would understand each other when his rebellious phase was over, but the reality doesn't go the way you wanted it to. Even now, he ignores me or only yells at me and verbally abuses me when I try to talk to him. We couldn't even have a decent conversation. My husband was coming home in the mornings more often, and our married life was collapsing. Then one day, something happened. My husband brought a young woman home. Who is this?
My girlfriend, who's 20 years younger than me, is pregnant. So please, let's get a divorce.
My husband started begging on his knees as he said that. To be honest, I wasn't surprised because I had noticed for a long time that my husband was having an affair. However, I couldn't believe that he brought her to this house where we have children. The woman he was having an affair with smiled at me.
Nice to meet you. I'm Amy.
I was amazed that she could smile knowing that it was an affair. She is said to be 35 years old, 20 years younger than my husband. She's wearing a revealing outfit and heavy makeup. It's a big difference from me, who's starting to show wrinkles.
I honestly don't see you as a woman anymore, and I want to take responsibility for her child, so please, let's get a divorce.
I had reached the limit of my patience with these selfish people. I have been patient for the sake of our children and our life, but now I have no love left for my husband. I have been struggling all this time while he had been playing around. I decided to take revenge on my husband to make him realize the hardships I went through. To his unusual plea, I nodded, agreeing to his proposal. Okay, fine.
Are you okay with that?
My husband was surprised and raised his voice in disbelief, perhaps because I had agreed too easily. Of course. Here's the divorce papers. I'll take everyone with me except for Alex. When I said that, my husband frowned suspiciously.
What? Take Alex with you too.
I couldn't believe what my husband was saying. That's impossible because Alex is your son, right? I'm not related by blood with him, and he and I don't get along.
I don't care about that. You said you would love him as your real son.
Yes, that's right. I've always treated him as if he was my real family. I never distinguished between my biological and non-biological children. I always cared for them in my own way.
Then take responsibility until the end.
John's words prompted his mistress to speak.
Yes. I can't be a mother to a high school student. You should take care of him since you're much older.
Right now, Alex is home and probably can hear this conversation. He never warmed up to me due to his rebellious phase, but this is really too much for him and I felt bad for him. He is your son you had with your ex-wife. Take responsibility and look after him.
What? You're heartless.
Who's heartless here? You've never taken part in raising our kids, so who are you to say that? If you're not going to take care of him, I won't divorce you. John scratches his head in annoyance. He then lets out a heavy sigh.
All right. I'll take care of Alex.
What? I can't be a mother to your son.
Sorry, but please, bear with him for a few more years.
What? Well, it can't be helped then. I'll forgive you if you buy me a new bag from my favorite brand.
John laughs foolishly and agrees to Amy. With the two of them looking as if they're about to start being lovey-dovey right there, I pull out the divorce papers.
Can you sign these quickly?
I'll go file them tomorrow.
All right. You're such an impatient woman.
While complaining, John signs the paper. I receive the signed divorce papers and securely put them into my bag.
By the way, will you be okay after the divorce? You don't have a job or a place to live. I feel sorry for the kids.
John smirks as he says that. He probably thinks I'm just a housewife with no savings. Thanks for worrying, but I have a job, so I'll be fine.
Huh? You started working? But it's part-time work, isn't it? You won't be able to make ends meet with such a small salary.
It's not part-time. I started my old job in web design. As long as I have a computer, I can work from home. Last month, I made over $2,500, so I won't have any problems living.
Huh.
John seems frustrated. I had used my savings from when I worked years ago to buy a computer and started working as a web designer from home. Having had the experience, I was able to get to work immediately and was saving for when I would eventually get a divorce. The reason I could hand over the divorce papers so easily was because I had prepared everything for this moment. Not knowing this, John, who thought he had the upper hand, I laughed at him. Anyway, are you guys going to be okay?
What do you mean?
Child support. I'll be receiving child support until Cherry and Albert become adults. John frowns. It's only natural that he would have to pay for his own children. Just because we're divorced, it doesn't mean he can abandon his parental responsibilities. Let's discuss the amount and make a contract through a lawyer later. It's for 2 kids, so I think it will be around $300 per month.
$300 per month? It's too much.
What are you talking about? Right now, our child is a middle schooler. It costs money for club activities, personal tutors, and so on. Child support isn't just food and utilities. If anything, it's not enough.
Does it really cost that much?
John had never been involved with the household finances, so he didn't know. Our children, Cherry and Albert, who are part of the athletics club, need quite a bit of money for shoes, uniforms, and practice gears. It also costs some money when they have games away from their school. Even with a monthly allowance of $200 per person, it wouldn't be enough. Oh yeah, your girlfriend already knows too, right?
About what?
I looked at his mistress and smiled. The compensation, right? You've been having an affair for years, so you'll have to pay for the damages. I'm not really sure until I consult with a lawyer, but it seems to be around $25,000, so be prepared.
What? I didn't hear anything about that. I don't know anything about it.
You think that because you're over 30 and you don't know, so you're excused from it? Besides, we have all the evidence, so playing dumb won't help. When my husband stopped coming home, I hired a detective agency to investigate about his affair. Since then, I've known that he was dating his mistress and even have photos of them together. There's no escaping now that all the evidence is gathered. Especially now that she's pregnant, there's no doubt he cheated, so there's no escaping. But she screamed with anger, unwilling to acknowledge the truth.
I don't have that kind of money. I don't even have savings. I'm about to have a child.
I don't care. If you can't afford it, why don't you ask your husband standing next to you to pay? Amy grabbed John's shoulder and shook him.
You're going to pay, right?
I can only afford child support. You'll have to pay on your own.
Why? You're the one earning money. You should pay.
I spent everything on gifts for you. How much do you think I spent on those gifts I gave you?
What? You're seriously useless. I didn't hear anything about you not having money.
The atmosphere between the two, who were so pleasant when they arrived, had turned sour, and I had to laugh. After all, she was probably after his money. Otherwise, she wouldn't have dated a man in his 50s. It's my husband's fault for laying a hand on another woman while still being married to me. However, if Amy continued the relationship knowing it was an affair, she's just as guilty. I wouldn't be satisfied unless she also paid me the amount I request for.
First of all, I thought of marrying you because you promised not to make me suffer and to buy me whatever I wanted. I don't know anything about compensation. I won't pay.
You can refuse if you want, but I'm going to consult a lawyer. Shall we meet in court? When I intentionally mentioned the word court, she stood up in a panic.
No way! I don't want to marry such an old man and go into debt. Especially with a son who's going to college. I really don't want that. I'm leaving.
Wait!
Amy grabbed her bag and dashed out the door. John tried to stop her, but she shoved him aside and he ended up on the floor. It was a ridiculous sight. Oh, she ran away.
It's not, oh, because of you this happened.
John, now furious, got up. What? If you're going to hit me, I'll call the police.
You, acting so high and mighty, you'll be punished for ruining this marriage.
At John's words, I burst out laughing. Punished? Then you'll be punished for neglecting me and our family, won't you? John glared at me in silence, looking frustrated. He probably still doesn't fully understand the situation. So I decided to drop one more bomb on him. By the way, the tuition for our son, Alex's entrance fee, is due this week. Be careful.
What?
So I told you, Alex is going to be a university student soon, right? You'll need to pay the entrance fee to enroll him, so that's why I'm telling you to pay it. You're going to take care of Alex, right? Upon saying this, my husband was dumbfounded. He has been neglecting Alex for many years, so he probably has no idea about the school he will be attending or how much it will cost.
How much is it anyway?
It's a private university, so it's about $12,000.
12,000? There's no way I can afford that.
Well, that's the amount you pay in the first year. After that, I think it will cost around $10,000 each year for tuition fees and facility fees, so do your best.
You're joking, right?
I was surprised to learn that private university tuition fees are so high because I attended a public university and didn't know much about how it cost. John also attended a public university, so he probably never thought it would come to this.
Why did you let him enroll in such an expensive university?
It's not my fault. I told Alex to study, but he wouldn't listen, and you didn't do anything when I consulted with you.
Even so, to let him enroll in such a university without my consent? I won't accept this.
Then why don't you talk to him about it? Alex is the one who decided to go to that university. Upon saying this, John fell silent. Perhaps he doesn't know how to deal with Alex because he has neglected his parenting duties until now. I have no intention of worrying about the two of them. Well, we'll gather our things and leave. As I said this and stood up, John suddenly tried to hold me back.
Wait, let's try again.
What are you talking about?
No, I've reconsidered. I think it's better not to divorce for the sake of our children.
John sounded serious. However, his words about our children were all excuses. You just don't want to pay child support and division of property, do you? I don't want to. I can't live with you anymore.
Why not? I've broken up with Amy, and I won't cheat anymore, so let's try again.
Absolutely not. I can't imagine living with someone who doesn't take care of his children, plays around, and impregnates someone 20 years younger than him. It seems you misunderstood something. I didn't agree to divorce because you said you wanted to.
Then why?
I've wanted to divorce you for a long time, but I couldn't because I didn't have the money. I've been working hard and saving up, so it's just the right time. Even if you hadn't said you wanted a divorce, I would have proposed it to you.
You're kidding.
John was speechless. Perhaps he thought he was loved by me. I'm not a saint who can love a man who has done such terrible things to me.
But the children would prefer to have both parents together. Divorce is bad for their education and for their mental health.
John said this. That's when Cherry and Albert, who had been listening to our conversation, burst out of their rooms.
I don't want to live with a father like him.
I can't either.
Cherry, Albert, how can you say such things to your father?
The children came to my side and glared at John.
Don't act like a father when you've never done anything before. It's really disgusting for a person like you to cheat on Mom all the time. I don't want to think of a person like you as my parent. It's much better to live just with Mom after divorce.
You guys?
John seemed more shocked than angry. He stood there with his mouth open in surprise. Don't underestimate them just because they're kids. They can see what adults do, and they definitely can judge right from wrong. You still think you're liked by your kids because you're their father?
But what I did was wrong, so forgive me. I'll do anything. I'll buy you anything you want, and I'll take you wherever you want to go.
We don't need such things. I don't even want to see you.
Upon hearing the children's words, John finally fell to his knees. Did he really think he could bribe and win over his children with things? If so, he is severely underestimating them. The kids knew I was struggling since they were in elementary school. They are considerate enough to worry about me. They will not forgive John easily. We gathered our things and left the house without saying a word to John, who was sitting down. In the end, I divorced John. I'm sure John is struggling with a division of property and child support. Apparently, he's being asked to pay child support to his mistress, who has also given birth to their child. If he continues to pay child support until the children are adults, he will have to keep paying even after retirement. He messed around with a younger girl because he preferred younger women, but he really did a stupid thing. And because he never did any housework before, his house is in a terrible state. Apparently, he can't even do laundry properly and is using the same wrinkled shirt over and over again, which is making him unpopular at work and in his neighborhood. His kids and mistress have left him. He has no one to rely on. He has no money to play around with, and I hear he's like a zombie. But that's none of my business anymore. And so, we started a new life. Cherry, Albert, you'll be late for middle school.
Okay.
Both of them put their bags on their shoulders and ran to the entrance.
Alex, you need to leave soon too, or you'll be late.
Yeah, you're so noisy.
Alex, the eldest son, also dressed in a suit and headed for the entrance. The day I divorced my husband, when I was about to leave the house with my belongings, Alex was standing in the hallway. He must have been listening to our conversation all along. Unable to ignore him, I spoke to him. What do you want to do? After much deliberation, my eldest son decided to come with me. To be honest, if I paid for my eldest son's tuition, life would be tough from then on. But my eldest son is a victim too. He must have been devastated when his biological parents said they didn't want to take him in. His rough times during his student years were largely influenced by the environment back at home. A father who never comes home and is always out playing. And me, who couldn't pay attention to him because I was too busy taking care of the younger kids. When he needed a parent, Alex was always left alone. I couldn't just abandon him like that. When we arrived at the new apartment, Alex said that he was going to quit college.
You don't have to pay for my tuition. I'll earn it.
I was glad to hear my son's sentiment, but I honestly didn't think he could get a decent job as a high school graduate. So, I made a proposal to my son. Why don't you study programming?
Programming?
Yes, in this internet society, if you can do codes and programming, you won't have trouble finding a job. Study seriously for a year and try to get a job. Until then, I will provide all your expenses. With that, my son listened to me surprisingly and studied hard. In just 6 months, he was good enough to get a job, and this year, he was hired as a full-time employee. The children, in suit and uniforms, are making a fuss at the entrance.
Don't talk to Mom like that. It's rude.
Anyone who complains won't get a ride in the car.
Liar. Give us a ride.
Bro, Don't get into an accident.
Cherry and Albert, who were previously afraid of Alex and didn't even talk to him, are now completely attached to him. And the 3 children, who had finished putting on their shoes, turned around and looked at me.
We're off.
All the children left the house after saying that. I never thought this day would come. I finally feel like I've become a family with Alex. I vowed once again in my heart to do my best for the happiness of my children from now on.
My husband, James, was urgently transported from his business trip. Receiving the contact, I hurried to the hospital. However,
Don't you think I'm definitely better than a failure of a wife like you, Grace, who is unattractive and looking older than her age?
this was when I witnessed an unbelievable sight. My sister-in-law and my husband. They were naked, embracing each other. Along with the surprise, a sense of disgust welled up. Because it's just impossible, right? They are real siblings, aren't they? I could hear my sister-in-law's seductive voice, and I inadvertently covered my ears. When I got the call, I have bursted out with a lot of tears from anxiety. About my beloved husband being gone. What was that all for? I want those tears back. No. That's not it, Grace. No matter what he says, I can't forgive him anymore. They betrayed me. I'll never forgive them. In anger, I turned on my smartphone and called someone. To someone whom they will definitely don't want to meet. My name is Grace. I'm a working housewife, turning 35 this year. I've been married to my husband, James, who is 2 years older, for 5 years. James was a senior at the high school where I used to attend. But at that time, we haven't known each other. I found out that we were from the same high school during our first date. Just before I met James, I had broken up with my longtime boyfriend. Believing I needed a new love to forget the old one, I half-heartedly participated in a blind date. That's where I met James. It seemed that James had also just broken up with his girlfriend, and we developed feelings for each other as we comforted each other. It seemed the same for James, so we have arranged a date another day. During that date, we discovered we were from the same high school. As a result of the growing affinity, we began a serious relationship with the future in mind. After a few years of dating, we got married. I think James is a very good man to spend life with as a marriage partner. He is always willing to help housework and never forgets to enjoy events such as birthdays and Christmas. And because James works for a reputable company, there's virtually no overtime or weekend work. Since we don't have children, he loves me with all his heart. I'm truly glad I was able to marry this man. However, while leading a fulfilling married life, there was one thing that worried me a bit. It was about the relationship with my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law is a married woman who is 3 years older than James, living about 10 minutes away from our home. She seems to have adored James since they were young, and when they were in elementary school, they were together all the time. Her affection for James didn't change in junior high and high school, and even as adults, it continues. To her, James must be her adorable little brother forever. And to her, I am the evil woman who stole her cute brother. When I went to meet his family to announce our marriage, she said that directly to me. I want to have a normal relationship with her, not necessarily a friendly one. But that seems to be an unreachable dream. So, at least from my side, I try to avoid contact with her. However, my sister-in-law doesn't care about that, and calls whenever there's a chance, nagging and making sarcastic remarks.
Hello, Grace. Haven't you quit your job yet? Stop thinking about yourself and become a full-time housewife to support James properly. I've told you so many times.
James can take care of himself, even without me supporting him. He's fine.
Don't talk back to me. Besides, I know better than anyone that James can do everything by himself. Just because you're his wife, don't think you can act superior. You're unpleasant.
With everything going like this, I can only smile bitterly and accompany her in conversation until she is satisfied. I have never reported such behavior of my sister-in-law to James, but I have consulted my mother-in-law, who lives a short distance away. Unlike my antagonistic sister-in-law, my mother-in-law treats me very well. We even arrange to have tea together sometimes. After the consultation, my mother-in-law, astounded at my sister-in-law's selfish attitude, firmly cautioned her. Thanks to that, the sarcastic remarks from my sister-in-law have gotten much better than just after the marriage. In any case, I wish she would accept James and me soon. Then, one day happened. That day, I had to work overtime for the first time in a while. I ended up coming home an hour later than usual, but since James was cooking dinner, I decided to go straight home without stopping by the supermarket. I was tired today and thought of going to bed early. As I passed through the ticket gates at the station nearest to my home, I locked eyes with a man. It was my sister-in-law's husband. I instinctively nodded in greeting, and he responded with a hello and a smile. I only see him for a few hours during the Christmas and New Year holidays. But since we were heading in the same direction, we ended up walking home together. Fortunately, he is sociable, so there were no awkward silences along the way. We chatted about harmless topics as we walked down the dark street. After about 15 minutes of walking together from the station, he raised his hand slightly, said, "Well, I'm going this way. Please be careful on your way home," and left. Even though he told me to be careful, my house was right in front of me. It seemed like he had walked with me because he was worried about me walking alone in the dark. I hadn't interacted with him much before, but I realized he was a good person. I watched him walk away before I entered my house. The next day, I had the day off, so I waved goodbye to James as he left for work, and enjoyed a cup of coffee in the living room. Then, the doorbell rang, indicating a visitor. I put my half-finished cup of coffee on the dining table and peered into the intercom monitor. It was my sister-in-law. I wondered if she had come to make sarcastic remarks. Despite feeling fed up, I headed to the front door. I could have ignored her, but if she found out I was pretending to be out, it would become even more troublesome. If I just let her talk, she would eventually leave. The moment I opened the front door, my sister-in-law grabbed my shoulder and raised her voice.
You're having an affair with my husband, aren't you? You're really the worst kind of woman. You're nothing like the quiet person you appear to be.
I was taken aback, unable to comprehend what she was accusing me of for a moment. As I stood dumbfounded, my sister-in-law became more heated.
Why are you looking so surprised? It's disgusting. I know you met with my husband last night.
It was then that I finally understood what she was talking about. She was talking about how I happened to meet her husband last night and walked home with him. Had she been watching us from somewhere? Or maybe her husband had told her himself. Either way, I haven't cheated on anyone. It was a misunderstanding on her part. When I told her this, she snorted in contempt and spat out. What a shameless woman you are. I'll get you for this, before storming off. Although she didn't seem convinced, I was relieved that she left. I hope this doesn't escalate any further. A few weeks later, James had to go on a business trip. James had been working a lot of overtime and going into the office on his days off recently. It was unusual for him to work overtime or go in on weekends, so when I asked about it, he said he had been preparing for his business trip.
Well, I'm off. Please take care of the house while I'm away. Don't get lonely and cry because I'm not around.
James said in a teasing tone and left. Well, I need to do my best at my own job too. I was just entering a busy period, so I had 2 busy days. And then, on the morning of the 3rd day, after James went on his business trip, while I was preparing for work, my phone rang. The screen of my smartphone displayed an unfamiliar phone number. Who could it be this early in the morning? Hello. May I ask who's calling? In response to my question, the person on the other end of the line said they were from the municipal hospital. That didn't mean anything to me. It seemed to be a hospital located about an hour away from my house. And I haven't been to a hospital recently. Anyway, I had no idea why they were calling. Are you sure you have the right number? I'm sorry, but I haven't been to your hospital before. Then the other person said, "Is this Grace?" and called my name.
Actually, James has been involved in a traffic accident and was just rushed to our hospital. He is currently sleeping due to the shock of the accident. So we're contacting you on his behalf.
Traffic accident, emergency transportation. Hearing these words, I felt a chill run down my spine. Is James all right?
He seems to be out of danger for now, but we think it's best if he stays in the hospital for 2 to 3 days just to be safe. We'll explain more in detail. Could you come to the hospital?
I replied, "I'll be there right away," confirmed the detailed address of the hospital, and hung up the phone. I then explained the situation to my workplace. My boss was very concerned and kindly said that I could take paid leave for a while. I changed from my work uniform into my casual clothes and decided to head to the hospital. On my way to the nearest station, I noticed something. The address of the hospital and the business trip destination that James had told me about were in completely different prefectures. Was it my misunderstanding, or had James misspoken? I was bothered by it, but I couldn't figure it out with my confused mind. I aimed for the hospital no matter what. About an hour later, I arrived at the hospital where James had been taken. At the reception desk, I checked the room number where James was and hurried to it. I found the room with James's name on it and was about to open the door quickly. But I thought he might still be sleeping, so I opened it quietly. This room was a double room with beds on both sides. The one on the right seemed to be vacant as there was no patient at the moment. And around the bed on the left, a curtain was drawn, making it impossible to see what was going on. James should be behind that curtain. When I entered the room, I heard a strange noise. It was unclear, but it sounded like a voice. I could also hear a creaking noise. It seemed to be coming from the bed where James was supposed to be sleeping. For some reason, I had a bad feeling and slowly approached the bed. I carefully looked at the bed through a gap in the curtain. There, on the bed, were the figures of a completely naked James and a likewise completely naked woman. And what's more, on closer inspection, that woman turned out to be my sister-in-law, which was even more of a shock.
Isn't someone like me better than a failure of a wife like you, Grace?
The moment her sweet voice reached my ears, feelings of surprise and disgust welled up within me. I pressed a hand to my mouth, suppressing the urge to vomit, and rolled out of the room and out to the hallway. I found a bench nearby and sat down, taking deep breaths to calm myself. Then I tried to understand the situation on my own. James had left home 3 days ago, saying he was going on a business trip. But that was a lie. He must have been meeting my sister-in-law under the pretense of a business trip. Then, for some reason, James had a traffic accident this morning. When the hospital called me, they didn't mention my sister-in-law. So I can assume that when the accident occurred, James and my sister-in-law were not together. After that, while I was on my way to the hospital, James must have woken up and contacted my sister-in-law. Then he called her to his hospital room and they engaged in an adulterous act. While all of this is pure speculation, It doesn't seem far from the truth given the circumstances. In any case, the fact that James lied about going on a trip, and the two of them are having a guilty relationship, is certain. I don't know when their relationship started, but it's a tremendous act of betrayal. Maybe they were laughing at me for not noticing their affair. With that thought, I was filled with anger. In my impulse, I returned to the hospital room. I quietly entered the room, making sure not to alert James or my sister-in-law, and took all the clothes and underwear scattered on the floor. Now they have nowhere to run. Then I slipped out of the room again and called my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law responded quickly. Mother-in-law, could you come to the address I'm going to tell you? James has been brought in urgently. I didn't tell her that James and my sister-in-law had been committing infidelity. I thought it would be quicker for her to see it with her own eyes than for me to explain. And so, I waited for about 2 hours. My mother-in-law arrived at the hospital, her face pale with panic. Unaware of her own children's infidelity, my mother-in-law worried about James's condition. I felt sorry for her even though it was not my fault. I tried to calm my mother-in-law down as we made our way toward the room where James and my sister-in-law were. I saw a crowd of hospital patients, visitors, and nurses. I wondered what had happened. Holding my mother-in-law's hand, I squeezed through the crowd down the hallway. Then, a familiar voice rang out.
Where did our clothes go? Give them back.
When I looked at the voice, there was my sister-in-law, covering her naked body with bed sheets. James was doing the same.
I have no idea. Why are you two naked? What on earth were you doing here?
The nurse raised her voice against the two.
What's going on? James was taken away on an emergency, and then...
My mother-in-law, standing a little behind me, murmured in confusion. When they finally noticed our presence, the two of them opened their eyes wide. I have James and your clothes. If you want them back, explain everything. Are you two having an affair? I showed them the clothes and underwear. This seemed to infuriate my sister-in-law, who then approached me, not caring that her sheets were being undone.
How dare you talk back? Yes, that's right. James and I are in love. You're the one who came between us.
As my sister-in-law exclaimed, James nodded deeply behind her.
Moreover, weren't you also having an affair, Grace? I heard from my sister that you were meeting her husband secretly.
James puffed his chest out as if he had one. Looking at him, I felt my love for him completely vanish. He chose to believe my sister-in-law over me. I had no regrets left for him. Just as I was about to counter, my mother-in-law spoke first.
You two, I never thought my children could be so stupid. I'm going to break off our parent-child relationship. Don't ever step foot in my house again. You two can go wherever you want.
An unexpectedly stern and low voice coming from my usually gentle mother-in-law accuses the two of them. Overwhelmed by her fury, or perhaps finally realizing the gravity of their actions, both James and sister-in-law are down, unable to say anything. I tossed their clothes and underwear at them. The sight of them picking up the scattered clothing from the floor was truly ridiculous. James, I never cheated. It's just a misunderstanding on my sister-in-law's part. I can't continue as husband and wife any longer. Be prepared for when you're discharged. I'll be claiming a hefty division of property. And of course, I'll tell your husband. With that declaration, James and my sister-in-law, still wrapped in their sheets, slumped in defeat. After a while, I formally divorced James. After the incident, my mother-in-law and I left them behind and returned home first. Apparently, James, who was supposed to be hospitalized, was severely scolded for significantly disrupting the hospital's order, and my sister-in-law was banned from entering. Then, as I declared, I claimed a division of property from James. Furthermore, once my sister-in-law's husband found out the situation, he also sought a divorce and claimed a consolation fee. Left the two of them struggling with enormous payments, working day and night, toiling away. For a while, James and my sister-in-law, who had both become single, lived together. But due to their strained living conditions, they were constantly arguing and soon separated. Perhaps they were intoxicated by the affair situation. And when that was gone, they might have felt there was no point in being together. After that, James sought to reconcile several times. Naturally, I had no intention of reconciling. The third time he asked for a reconciliation, I warned him that I would call the police if he continued to pester me, and since then, he hasn't shown up. So I don't know what's happening with James now, but the division of property continues to be paid. So I guess he's managing somehow somewhere. And my sister-in-law, who separated from James, seemed to have been barely making ends meet with day labor. But it seemed like she had reached her limit and finally started working at night. Speaking of which, a few years ago, my sister-in-law said things like, "Women who work at night are pitiful." Now that she has become that pitiful woman, I wonder how she feels. I hope she is reflecting on her actions. As for me, I moved to start a new life. I now live in an apartment near my workplace. I still occasionally contact my mother-in-law. Initially, my mother-in-law was very depressed, but lately, she seems to be slowly recovering, which is a relief. I plan to have a tea party at home this Sunday. I felt as if I couldn't recover for a while after being betrayed by someone I trusted. However, I can't afford to dwell on it forever, considering this is the start of my second life. I'll live positively to seize happiness. That's what I vowed in my heart.
My name is Emily. I've been married to my husband, Jacob, for 11 years now. I've been a full-time housewife since we got married, raising our 2 boys. My husband works in construction, and many of his days consist of leaving early in the morning and coming home late. There were also times when he had to go to work, even on his days off, because he said he wouldn't make the deadline. As a result, I was mostly single-handedly responsible for raising our children. Our sons are 9 and 8 years old, both at an age where they're mischievous kids. Since they're boys, they're quite strong, and it was difficult to break up their fights. One day, when I finally got the boys to sleep and was resting, my husband came home. "You're late again today. You must be tired." As usual, I spoke to my husband and started preparing his dinner. Normally, he would come to the dining table immediately, but today he didn't. When I looked at him wondering why, he was looking guiltily at me. Seeing him like this, I had a bad feeling, but kept calm and asked him, "What's up all of a sudden?" Without lifting his head, he said to me,
I really feel really guilty, Emily, and I'm sorry. The woman I cheated on you with is pregnant, so can we get a divorce?
Well, it seems that my hunch was right. I had been suspicious of my husband's recent behavior and had suspected he might be cheating on me. However, I didn't expect that the woman he cheated with got pregnant. While being surprised by this, I said, "You can't just drop this on me. What about our sons? They're still in elementary school. How are we supposed to explain this to them?" I waited for his response, but he kept silent, looking down. Even though I tried to get him to talk, he remained silent and didn't move. Thinking this wasn't going anywhere, I suggested we talk the next day, as it was late, and went straight to bed. Then, the next day came. It was a holiday, and the children didn't have school. Once I confirmed that the kids went out to play, I spoke to my husband. "About what you said yesterday, By saying she's pregnant, you mean you've been cheating, right?
I'm really sorry. I know I did something wrong, but since she's pregnant, I guess I have to marry her. You're strong, Emily, and I'm sure you'll be fine even without me. You're a full-time housewife now, but I know you can raise our sons well even while working.
What are you talking about? Do you think I would agree to divorce you right now? I won't allow you to divorce me and be happy on your own by remarrying your mistress. It seemed like my husband assumed I would instantly agree to the divorce, and he was surprised when I refused. I was angry that his words of apology were not reflected in his actions. What really infuriated me, though, was the situation with our sons. The truth is, my eldest son is not my biological child, but my sister-in-law's son. She divorced 5 years ago and was raising her son all on her own. But she shoved him onto us, saying that having a child would be a disadvantage when she remarries. At first, I objected, but instead of getting mad at my sister-in-law, my husband and his mother thought it was a great idea, and so we ended up taking him in and raising him. My eldest son, Cameron, was 4 at the time, old enough to remember his mother. Despite that, he was terribly upset when he found out that I was suddenly his mother.
You're not my mom. Where's my real mom? Give her back.
Cameron would say horrible things to me every day. When I got angry, even though he was only 4 years old, he would leave to my in-laws' house. Since we lived separately but still lived in the same property, it only took a few seconds to get there. But he shouldn't have gone without telling me, and every time Cameron went to my in-laws, I would get scolded by my mother-in-law. And looking at all this, my eldest son seemed to be enjoying himself. Even in such circumstances, I treated both my sons equally, thinking that as time went by, he would come to like me. But that didn't happen, and it seemed that he still disliked me. Gradually, he began to take his anger out not just on me, but also on his younger brother James.
Your mom's a bad guy. She sent my mom away somewhere. Being her kid, you don't deserve to play with toys.
He would say things like that and take toys away from his younger brother. Even though I bought the same toys for both of them, he always wanted his younger brother's toys and would snatch them. As for my husband, he just watched TV and never scolded Cameron. Rather, he would selfishly get angry at the kids, saying,
"You're too noisy. I can't hear the TV."
Of course, I understood that he was busy with work, but I always thought that he could at least help out a little. There's no way I could take care of 2 boys in this situation. That's why I insisted on taking only my younger son with me as a condition when divorcing Jacob. If we're getting divorced, I'm taking James with me. Cameron is originally your sister's child, isn't he? If I divorce you, he won't be my responsibility anymore.
Isn't that a bit much? You've lived together for 5 years and Cameron is very attached to you, Emily. Are you going to separate him from James, his little brother, whom he's very close to?
Cameron is attached to me? The boys get along well? Are you seriously saying that? I was astounded at Jacob, who seemed to have no understanding of his own family situation. How can he say that Cameron is attached to me? As for the boys, it's not always Cameron's fault, but they argue every single day. Cameron is already strong now, and I don't think I'll be able to handle once he grows up. Anyway, if we divorce, I'm taking James with me. You can take care of Cameron. Then we can cancel out the child support.
Okay.
I've reached an agreement with Jacob. All that's left is to demand the division of property from Jacob. The next day, After sending the boys off to school, I decided to consult a lawyer and a private investigator immediately. In the discussion with the lawyer, since Jacob admits to his affair, I was told that I can definitely claim the division of property. The amount of the division of property will be determined by the evidence from the detective agency. I returned home and waited for a call from the detective agency, while steadily preparing for the divorce. 2 weeks later, the detective agency contacted me that the evidence was ready, and I arranged to meet with the person in charge of my lawyer. They only had to investigate twice, but the evidence was quickly gathered. Furthermore, it seemed that there were times when Jacob, Cameron, and the mistress were all out together. Although I had agreed with Jacob that he would take Cameron, I was surprised that he was introducing his mistress to Cameron without my knowledge. As for Jacob's behavior, I have been thinking that he was coming home late because he was constantly working overtime, but it appears I was mistaken. Although I have some suspicions, I never thought he would continue his affair even after confessing it to me. Thanks to that, I was able to gather evidence, and now I can get a divorce in a way that's more advantageous to me. While looking at the evidence with my lawyer, we decided to send a certified letter to his mistress. That night, I showed Jacob the evidence from the detective agency and the certified letter prepared by the lawyer. I have solid evidence of your affair. I've also sent a certified letter to your mistress. If you agree to pay the division of property, I can grant you a divorce right now.
Really? It's been a while since we talked about divorce. I was worried about whether we could really get a divorce, but I'm relieved. The division of property? What do you mean? Why did you collect evidence when I honestly told you about the affair?
Because you're the one who had an affair. You're responsible for the divorce, right? I think it's only natural to pay the division of property. It seems that Jacob thought that if he honestly reported his affair, everything would be fine. How pathetic of him. No matter how much I explain, he doesn't seem to understand at all. I thought it would be pointless to explain at this pace, so I decided to have a lawyer explain it again to him later on. A few days later, as I was doing household chores as usual, I received a call from an unknown number. I thought it might be Jacob's mistress, but it was actually my sister-in-law, Sarah.
Emily, it's been a while. I heard from Cameron and wanted to call you. You're getting divorced, aren't you? Surely Cameron will be taken by you, right?
Sarah, long time no see. What? Have you heard from Cameron even though I haven't told the children yet? I'm sorry, but Jacob and I have decided that Cameron will be taken by Jacob.
Oh, so that's why Cameron was crying. Emily, I hate to say this, but isn't that cruel? I heard from Jacob. And Cameron and James are good friends, right? And yet you're separating the two of them.
I was frustrated by Sarah's selfish remarks, but I was even angrier at Jacob for lying to her. Sarah, you are mistaken. Cameron and James are always fighting, and they're not getting along well. Anyway, if the boys already know about the divorce, I must explain it properly. I'm hanging up now.
Wait a minute.
I hung up the phone without listening to what Sarah was trying to say. And then I waited for my sons to come home. A few hours later, my sons came home and I was about to explain, but Cameron spoke first.
Please, take me with you too.
You knew, didn't you? But you went out with Jacob and his mistress, right? You seemed to be enjoying yourself. Despite that, what's wrong with being with Jacob?
I hate him. His tone of voice is scary, and my belongings and clothes all have a strange smell. I feel sick when I'm with him.
Could the strange smell be the perfume? I had noticed a sweet smell on Jacob's clothes before. but I thought it was from a coworker. Now I realize it must have been his mistress's perfume. But Cameron, you're always mean to James and you two often fight. I can't break up the fights you have with each other forever. Besides, I thought you hated me. You want to go with someone you hate instead of Jacob?
Emily, I want to go with you, Mom. I regret what I've done before, and I promise I'll be good, please.
Cameron pleaded like that, crying. I was happy that he called me Mom for the first time.
Mom, please, take my brother too. We'll be good, please.
After hearing this from my sons, I had no choice but to agree. I was anxious, but we had lived together for 5 years, and I had always wanted Cameron to call me Mom, so I was happy. I immediately told the lawyer that I wanted to take both of my sons. The lawyer's instructions were to discuss child support with Jacob. Then I spoke to Jacob when he returned from work. After all, I'm taking Cameron with me.
What are you talking about now? I've introduced him to Erica, and it's a problem if you say that.
I've informed the lawyer about this. It may be too late, but Cameron wants to come with me. Cameron is 10 years old, so his wishes should be respected. Anyway, we're going to discuss the compensation as well the day after tomorrow, so please ask any questions then. Make sure you tell your mistress to come properly. Jacob was angry about Cameron, but didn't say anything in particular, and our conversation ended. The day after tomorrow. The day of the discussion came. Although we were supposed to go to the same destination, Jacob left first. He must be going to pick up his mistress. After confirming that Cameron and James had gone out to play, I headed to the office alone. When I arrived at the lawyer's office, as expected, Jacob and his mistress were already there, sitting on the sofa like a couple. Seeing the affair partner for the first time other than in pictures, I was surprised that her belly was more bigger than I had imagined. Although it's only been about a month since I heard she was pregnant, it looked like she would give birth in another 2 to 3 months. I thought Jacob must have been hiding it from me, but I decided to proceed with the conversation without worrying about it. As you can see from the content certificate, I will claim damages for this affair from both of you. Also, I will take custody of my sons, so I will also claim child support from Jacob.
What's a content certificate? What does compensation mean? Am I getting it? I came here because I heard you two were getting divorced today, right?
Jacob's mistress, Erica, seemed to have not read the content certificate. It did feel a bit strange, because she had received the content certificate but there was no contact from her, and her attitude today did not seem like someone who thought she was going to be asked for compensation. You have to pay the damages for having an affair with Jacob. Neither Jacob nor Erica seemed to understand, but after an explanation from the lawyer, they finally seemed to grasp the situation. Both Jacob and Erica became frantic.
It's impossible. I can't pay. I'm pregnant, you know. I resigned from my company because I said I'm getting married and I don't have any savings.
That's right. Compensation and child support, there's no way we can pay that. That's it. We can offset the child support with a child that Erica is pregnant with and the 2 kids, Cameron and James.
Did Jacob not realize that he was making an outrageous statement? I didn't think that he was completely unaware about what would happen in divorce and compensation to this extent. Why would I offset child support for a child that's not mine? It's completely unrelated.
But if I have to pay both compensation and child support, I won't be able to live. My baby will be born soon and I won't have any money to prepare.
That has nothing to do with me. Anyway, please take responsibility for having an affair. The lawyer took out documents related to compensation and child support and showed them to Jacob and Erica. I had asked the lawyer to make a notarized document to ensure that it would be paid properly. Upon seeing the amount recorded on the document, the two were even more astonished and turned pale. It's no wonder they were shocked, since they were requested for an amount higher than what they had imagined.
I can't pay this amount. If I pay this much every month, I won't be able to live.
I knew you would say that. But if you don't agree to the compensation and child support, I won't divorce you. Erica seemed more anxious than he was. The one who would be most troubled if we don't divorce must be Erica. As if to add salt to the wound, there was someone else being called here. That person should be coming soon, I believe.
Excuse me.
Mom, why are you here?
I had, of course, explained to my mother-in-law Mary what Jacob had done. Initially, I thought she was my enemy because she told me to raise Cameron. Mary, who is not physically strong, judged that she couldn't raise a boy and asked me to take care of Cameron. She cared about Cameron and did come to help me out. I realized later that she got angry at me because she cared about him. Mary has always been strict and hates dishonesty. Jacob had always been intimidated by her and never had a rebellious phase. So I asked for her cooperation this time and had her come today.
Jacob, what have you done? It's natural to pay compensation and child support. Don't fuss. Are you aware of what you've done?
Mom, Erica's here. Stop it.
What? Erica? Stop fooling around. Don't ever come across my house again.
Both Jacob and Erica were completely intimidated by Mary's power. Erica began to cry and apologize.
I'm sorry. I'll sign to pay the compensation, so please just let me go home.
I promise to pay too.
Thanks to Mary's power, I was able to get them to promise to pay the compensation. Of course, I also got Jacob to agree to pay child support. This settled things, and on the way home, Mary and I went to pick up our sons and had our first meal out for Cameron. After that, there were payments from Jacob and Erica for compensation, but since Erica said she had no savings, her parents covered for it. I heard a rumor that the two married but continued to fight over money, and Jacob cheated again, leading to a quick divorce. In addition, Erica had to work from morning to night, leaving her baby with her parents, to pay back the money she borrowed from them. Jacob, having cheated twice, lost trust within his company and was demoted to a department where those about to be laid off were sent. His salary also decreased, and he's reportedly struggling financially. As for me, I ended up adopting Cameron as a special adopted child, and I feel like I've become his mother officially, and he became my official son. Cameron has kept his promise and has become a much better older brother than before. We still live in the house we used to live in, and I occasionally go out to eat with Mary. I want to continue living happily with my sons.